Well, I think it's probably one of those that, depending on the circumstances, you might like it, you might not like it.
I know it's too late for this town meeting and for the election and the ballot questions, but
Yeah.
that would have been a good question to put on the ballot.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Mark,
Yeah.
I think so. Obviously, what the state has said right now is that if we are not in compliance, or if a community is not in compliance, they would not be eligible for grants. That's number one. So we would have to be able to basically trim back what we want to do and the things that we want to try to accomplish to improve quality of life, because we wouldn't be able to get those grant funds, or we would have to look at alternative sources of revenue. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, there have been plenty of organizations that have signaled that they are willing to sue communities on their own, not necessarily have the AG sue, but to ensure that fair housing rules and requirements are being put in place. So we would have to, keep an eye and monitor that on how that goes.
And I was at the planning board meeting for that forum, the open forum, public forum. That was 30 or so people here. And I'm looking at it, how it was said to me about the 50 lots, 50 acres. Acres, thank you. And I looked at it at the time and saying, what about structures? Well, the state's looking for double-family homes, right?
They're looking at multifamilies.
Multifamily.
Multi-family homes. So I said at the plan, I asked that question to the planning board, but isn't a multi-family home a structure?
Mhm.
Technically, it is.
Mhm.
So if we say, if the town says no because of what is structurized, the state will come back and say, well, you have to adhere to the, to
Mark,
us.
can I ask you a question? What do you mean structures or
Structures.
structurized?
Buildings. the
Okay,
buildings-
so
the
we
buildings-
know that some of the locations that we are recommending to be covered by MBTA zoning already have housing on them.
Right.
Is that your question?
That's
Or
part,
issue?
that's part of the issue. And with the planning board, they said they're not tearing down to replace,
Correct.
Right.
but there's still gonna be a structure there.
Well, so let's look at Cirrus, right? Because the Cirrus property is one of the properties that's going to be part of the potential, if this passes, is part of the zoning. So nothing will happen with the buildings that are there currently, right? But should, at some point, who knows how many years down the road, they could then increase the number of units per acre to match the MBTA zoning amount. So the other thing to remember with this zoning is no housing has to be built. All they're looking for is for the zoning to be approved, and so that if someone wants to build it, they can build it by right.
And it was to the zoning part. It was also said that the state can override the bylaw and zoning codes without the town
Not
saying.
in relation to MBTA zoning? No, once we identify where MBTA zoning is going to be, which we have, and it's been well thought out, I mean, our subcommittee has done an amazing job. If it passes at town meeting, that's all we have, and then we, report that to the state, then we've met our compliance for MBTA zoning requirements.
Okay, and the last thing about it will be, our bylaws can't do anything about this.
Mark, you're confusing, I think, 40B with the MBTA
Oh.
zoning, I think,
Okay.
which is common. That's common.
Oh, okay, then,
I mean, Madam Chair.
Please do.
Mark, just to let you know that the MBTA zoning bylaw has to do with the density of units per acre and not a 40B type of design plan. Okay, so the subcommittee looked at all the different parcels that are available in and around that half-mile radius of the MBTA zoning site. We were also able to look at other locations that have already been, as Yolanda said, pre-built. and we can utilize that for the density. So it makes it a little bit easier for us, because we have so many projects that have already been built. That helps eliminate the density aspect of it. But that's what this whole particular zoning bylaw has to do with it. And so we have to look at those zoning bylaws that we currently have on file, just like the downtown overlay district. A lot of that property is already available to be built in a similar fashion. So you're not reinventing the wheel there. It's already something that's already on our books. We're just looking at the density of the number of units per acre. That's what we're trying to minimize.
The density, that's the stronghold for this town that we can work, and hopefully that the state can agree to.
The state has given us our guidelines of what we need to do for MBTA zoning. The subcommittee has worked so that if the plan that they present gets approved at town meeting, then we will have met the guidelines from the state.
Right, and that's all we need to do.
And that's all we need to do.
Okay,
And my recommendation is we support this at town meeting.
I don't want to play devil's advocate, but I'm going to say, what happens if the town meeting votes it down?
Then we have to talk to the state, and we're not sure what'll happen.
We may have to
But
ask
as
for an
Michael
extension.
said then, if there's grants that we're looking to apply for, either for land purchases or improvements to our community or road work or anything like that,
Yeah.
we are no longer eligible. So instead of getting our tax dollars back to us, those tax dollars that we might get in grants would go to other people if we don't pass MBTA zoning. It's pretty straightforward.
It may not have been said, it may not be true, what I heard at the planning board, but is the state holding hostage those grants?
Well, I mean, it's the terms that you use, Mark, right?
Yeah.
The state has given us the guidelines, and yeah, I guess you could say they'd be holding those grants hostage if we don't pass our MBTA zoning. But anyway, we do have a hearing that we need to start. If you have further questions, I'd be happy to chat with you before town meeting if you have some more questions. And
Are we talking about 40B tonight?
we are discussing 40B.
So that
we
would
are
be-
discussing 40B tonight.
Well, that,
later in the-
I did not know I was confusing 40B with
Yeah.
what I was saying, so I'll leave the 40B to the agenda item to talk on, but I was talking about the MBTA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Similarities, Mark, that I think you're feeling and that I think a lot of people feel are the lack of control, local control that we have with either 40B or the MBTA, law. So in both instances, they are sort of allowing or forcing, units to be built, almost not forcing, but 40B allows
The density aspect of it.
units to be built that are out of our control. And then they're forcing us to rezone areas to increase density under MBTA. So there's that frustration, right, that we don't have any local control. That's the similarity, I think, between the two. But one is actually, more about building immediately, and the other one is just zoning so that it could be built upon.
And very last thing, I will sit down after this, I want to thank the town manager through his newsletter for the link to the planning board. That meeting is on your newsletter. I watched the replay of it on there.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. I think
Do we have
we are
anybody
ready.
here?
It is 7:15. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, October 30th, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. to review a Class 2 license application. A Class 2 license allows for the sale of used cars, and the business address is 62 Nickerson Road, Ashland, Mass. MJT Auto Sales, Inc., Marcio Machado, Pimentel, 62 Nickerson Road, Ashland, Mass. Persons wishing to be heard in this matter are invited to attend the public hearing in person or by logging into the Zoom meeting. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments on the Select Board's office. To the Select Board's office, Town Hall 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass., or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com. Okay. So, if I can get a motion
So moved.
to open, Okay,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is now open. And we have two people here to speak to us on behalf of the licensees. Please introduce yourself and your role, and then we can go from there.
Hi, good evening. My name is Diogo Gomes. I'm actually representing Marcio Pimentel due to the language, and I'm a general manager of the store.
Okay,
In the previous store, I'm also the general manager.
okay, great.
My name is Jose Padilla. I'm the one that actually have the actual license out of the store, 62 Nickerson Road, which is called New Beginnings Auto Sales. So I'm here just, for any matters, if you guys had any questions of,
Because it's a transfer,
transfer
right?
of
You're
licensing.
giving yours in and they're taking it
Yes,
over.
today the license gets active. I'm ready to pretty much hand my license back to you guys and
Okay.
we can proceed.
So-
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So let's start, why don't you talk a little bit about what your plan is with taking over the space and how you're gonna move it forward, and then board, as we have questions, we can ask questions. Susan, I believe that we have everything in our packet related to this, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So why don't you start what you're planning on doing, and then we can ask some questions.
Yeah, we are actually, Marcio, it's been in business over than 20 years in Framingham location. And he used to have a dealership in Waverly Street. We also have another dealership at the Hollis Street. So we basically plan to move forward with the same kind of business, which is retail store, pre-owned, used vehicles. And we try to concentrate more in Framingham for commercial vehicles and standard vehicles in Ashland. We thought would be a good opportunity, and especially due to the amount of spots on that location. So, yeah, basically this is what we're looking for.
Okay. So one of the things that did come up when our building inspector, and I just got this before our meeting, the space currently is open for 80 spots. And the building inspector is recommending that we reduce it to 50. Did he relay that to you?
Honestly, I haven't heard that. No, we did not.
Okay. Okay.
The property can actually hold more than 80 cars. We're not using the space that it's pretty much on the right side of the building,
Right.
the one that is not asphalt.
Mhm.
But if we need to, we can always use it, which the agreement with the landlord, pretty much that space belongs to the same 62 Nickerson Road, I think it's, a pretty big property, where you can easily fit, 80 plus cars there.
Okay. So when Doug went out, and I just got this before the meeting, if you take a look, he did notice that the side parking lot, and if you noticed it on the plans that
Yep.
was in our package, was empty. And so that's a discussion we'll wanna have, how many cars.
Okay.
How many cars, when our building inspector went, he noticed that side lot was empty. And I think that's one of the reasons he might have recommended going down to the 50, because there weren't more than 50 there at the time, and it would make it a little more safe and more orderly.
Yeah, so at the moment, we're not using that space because, it was summer. That space on the side is always been a lot of trees, leaves everywhere, and it wasn't flat at all. So we actually invest a little bit of money, to flatten it out.
Okay.
And then, we were just doing a little bit, painting inside of the building, so we had the cars pretty much just in the front of the lot.
Thank you.
Just so we can actually make the property look better, for the upcoming year. That's why the side of the building is empty. Because right now we know, our season is coming down. It's winter. We're not gonna be, having the same amount of cars. But we're getting ready with the property for the oncoming season, which, most of the car sales it's run on summer,
Right.
Winter time for us is a really slow season, so technically all we need is just the space to either storage cars, get the good opportunities from the auction, those convertibles that nobody wants in the winter time. We pretty much
Right.
want to have them there. When nobody's buying them. But the place wasn't ready, and now I think it is ready, you know, for us to put the car parks where, you know.
Okay.
I mean, there is plenty of space on that side, on the right side, on the left side.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Any other information you'd like to give us? If not, I'm gonna open it to the board for questions.
No, I think we're comfortable
Okay.
with those information provided.
Okay,
To the-
great. Who, Joe, go
Yep,
ahead.
If I may, Madam Chair, thank you. Thanks, guys, for being here. If I remember correctly, you were here in front of us not too long ago with the folks on 135,
Yes, so,
right?
sorry, yes, yeah, we recently opened that store.
Right.
I think it was with Ronnie Reese, you know, with what's the person that transferred that
Correct.
license to me. I was on Nickerson Road for about 14 years. I think we opened in 2010. Being an Ashland resident, I mean, like, had the opportunity to get the place on 135. And being on Main Street, I think, I mean, have changed my perspective of, like, you know, I want to be here instead of Nickerson Road, which I think both locations are great.
Right.
But I mean, like, they can actually, they have more cars than me. So I think, like, you know, it's time for me to kind of like give the chance to them.
Right, so lot size-wise, it's more apropos for them,
Correct.
for the business that they utilize it for.
Yep.
Okay,
I think, I mean, I think with any type of business, everybody was thinking like, oh, I want to go bigger and bigger. But in my case, I was just like, you know what? I mean, like, I already been here 14 years. Somebody gave me the opportunity to be on Main Street. And I'm so happy with the store that I'm like, you know what, I mean, like, I don't want to be running in two places.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I look for a good friend of mine, and I mean, like, that's when Marcio came in place. And I know him for the same, I mean, he's been a family friend. So when I had to look for somebody to replace me, I was just like, I think I have the guy, and that's what I, you know, brought it
Yeah.
to you guys.
so will he be unifying the two lots that he has to 72 Nickerson Road? Does he have two businesses now, and are you combining those two businesses to be at 72? Or will that be in addition to?
No, because most of his, well, the place that he has in Framingham, it's, I don't know if you guys been in, it's 120, it was 120?
Hollis Street.
It's Hollis Street.
Hollis Street.
126?
It's more commercial, you know, it's like, it's a focus on selling cargo vans, the heavy equipment.
Okay,
So they already have a really good Brazilian community that knows exactly where to go. And I think Nickerson Road came into place because it was a little bigger, and he has also a good line of sedans, and that they don't actually fit good in Hollis Street, you know, so that's what
Yep.
they were like, you know what, they're not gonna be combining. I think they're just looking more
Two
for
separate
like,
lots, just for a second site, okay.
his team is way bigger than mine.
okay,
You know,
Sure.
my team is, I think you guys met my brothers, you know, I mean,
Yes.
we always keep it just between our two. In his case, I mean, like, he has, you know, different person to help him, you know.
yeah, and the hours of operation are gonna be the same as it currently is now?
Technically,
Okay,
I think we discussed that everything is gonna pretty much stay the same as what we
Okay.
had before.
all right, and what about doing any general repairs when your vehicles come on site, either via an auction or whatever? Will the work be done on site, or will it be done off-site?
So, well, I think the job right now, what they're using is the same mechanics that I had before, Bobby Gooch, at the beginning of the street, because, I mean, like, they're both Brazilians. I mean, like, they have a good connection with the guy up the street, which is Louis Garage. I mean, technically, I mean, like, the cars are getting just prepped to go to the auction when they need to, you know?
Mhm.
And that's the key of that location. I mean, like, when, I mean, we are in the car business. I mean, like, so technically, we're buying cars from one auction to another, and
Sure.
that place is so big that we can get it there, do a little bit of makeup, you know, I mean, like, we can retail it if we have to, or
Mhm.
we can send it to the auction, which is like 5 minutes from that location to Odessa.
From
you know.
Odessa, yeah.
So the repair, I mean, like, it's just so minimal probably that they're gonna, like I did before. We don't have technically like a big mechanic facility
Okay.
from there, because that place is
Yep.
20 mechanics in that road. I
Okay.
think
Sure.
if they need to do anything, I think they had it so close, you know.
I just have one other question, Madam Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
And this is for Susan. Susan, did we get any correspondence from any of the neighbors or abutters with respect to yay or nay on this transfer, or having the business still there?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Claudia?
Yeah, I just had a question about the 50 versus 80. So you had that open area because you didn't need it and you were trying to clean it up, et cetera, et cetera. Do you need, and does he need 80 spots?
I think they do. I mean, I wanted it to have more cars. I never put more cars in there because the place wasn't ready for me to put the customers in that particular space.
Got it.
I think when you're in retail, I mean, you want to have a good, place,
Yeah.
flat, for people to walk, looking at the cars. You don't want nobody to be, falling, when the place is not flat at all. That's what I never actually put cars there. But I mean, like, they have the money. They already did put money in the property.
Okay.
And now if you go and look at it, I mean, like, it's exactly flat, how it's supposed to be. And the plan right now, I mean, like, is to put asphalt. Probably it's not gonna happen this year because winter is coming, but that is probably the plan you guys are gonna be seeing probably as soon as summer start next year. So
Okay.
the place is gonna look even better than what I had it before.
All right. And then, Madam Chair, I wondered why the building commissioner recommended.
Susan said she has a comment on that. Susan, why don't you let us know? Go ahead, give us your input.
Okay, so what Doug did is he went out today, he did a site visit. On that parcel, there is 2 buildings on it. The current parking plan that we have that accommodates 80 vehicles goes behind the building that's next to the building they're going to operate out of. He said when he was up there, there was a dumpster company or a trash company or something that was in that building, and they had materials behind there. So if that gets cleaned up, and they can actually park vehicles there like the parking plan says, then 80 makes sense. But if they can't utilize those spaces, then there's not space to fit 80 cars according to him.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the area in back of 72 that's the concern, not the stuff on the side.
The only concern he had with the side is when he was there, and it might be exactly like Jose said, they moved some vehicles up against the garage doors, which was the entrance. That is also the entrance to get into the back of the building. So Doug was concerned with having vehicles parked up against the garage doors so closely, but it might just be something they're doing while they're doing work in the actual lot. That might not be the home for them.
Okay.
Okay.
So do you have an agreement with the business owners in 72 that you can park your cars in back of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chair, is
Sure,
it
go
in
ahead.
writing or is it a verbal agreement? Because I
No,
want to just make sure you guys are covered and it's,
It's in writing.
it's in writing, okay.
There is a floor plan of the property and then
Okay.
we mark it where it belongs to.
Yeah. And you,
Okay.
and you did mention a few moments ago that, the winter months are coming upon us. Where are you gonna stack your snow for snow removal?
So, usually, I mean, like, we take about 15 cars from the front of the lot. And I think, I mean, like, with the company that is next to us, I think it's a company, I don't remember the name of the company, but right in the middle, we both kind of like combine the snow, I mean, like, but
Okay.
it doesn't actually bother our operation and his operation, it's just staying in between of both properties,
Mhm.
It's parked right behind the car, so after we clean, we can still park cars right there,
So you're not losing any parking spaces as a
No,
result of
not
that?
at all.
Okay.
I mean, that company, I can't remember the name of the company, but they have those big tractors, so when there is a lot of snow, they even take it and put it on the trucks, and send it,
Put it in my house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Makita, any questions?
I just had a question about why Doug's
Okay.
recommendation, so I think my question was answered.
Okay. So I guess my first question is, do we feel like we want to go with Doug's recommendation? Or based on what we've heard and the fact that they're cleaning it up, do we want to go with the 80 that is on the application? I'm thinking, part of me is thinking the 80 that's on the application, but we can review it, and if we're finding that there's an issue next year when they renew,
We can revert
we could
back.
always revert back to 50.
Yeah,
Okay,
I like
yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Susan, anything else from you?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the select board?
No.
Any other deliberation? No, okay.
Make a motion to close the
Checklist.
meeting?
If I can get a second?
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, if I can get a motion to allow the transfer of this license, with 80 cars as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. So, we are approving this license. Congratulations with the 80 cars. We will do a review probably, next spring, during the summer and through the fall to make sure it's working with the 80 cars.
Absolutely.
The other thing I might recommend is if you could get us a copy of the agreement with the other business owner that shows that you're allowed to park in back of his building.
Keep it on file.
And that way we can have that on our file so that, if there's other people sitting here and there's ever a question, we have it with our records.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
We took a motion, we took a vote, we're all good. Okay, just checking.
Thank you. Yep.
Hold it or,
Actually, Susan, can he come downstairs and give it to you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So just go
Thank you.
downstairs to
Thank
the
you, guys.
select board meeting.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Yep.
and good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Okay. Great, I don't usually not follow Doug's, but I think based on their, we'll do a review. Okay,
Well, and it was 80 to start, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We got new information here.
right, I
Yeah.
think that's part of it,
I
so,
feel like if Doug was passionate about it, he probably would have come or something.
yeah. Okay, moving on, old and new business, review the special town meeting warrant articles. We now have a town meeting warrant with, motions, I believe.
Yes.
Jen or Michael, who's gonna take us through this, please? Okay,
So you should have, the town meeting warrant, which we went through, at our last meeting, and since then, sort of putting in the motions, and then we've also met with FinCom, so you have the FinCom recommendations as well. No real changes, and do you want me to go through all of the articles?
yeah, if you would, because it's always a good opportunity for people who watch this later and have questions. Go for it.
I'm on the right one. So our first article, is for free cash, appropriation. And so, the sort of change, obviously our article is more general, so the motion has sort of the meat of the article. And so based on our financial policies, 50,000 will go back into our general stabilization fund. $822,841 will go into OPEB. 210 will go back into the SPED stabilization fund.
It's my blood sugar.
And actually 1.7, a little over 1.7 will go into capital. And so, right now, I think we're just trying to determine whether it's going to capital stabilization. So if you want to, that's fine.
So, yeah, so originally, I had mentioned, one of the reasons why we had such a large free cash number this year is we had a significant amount of motor vehicle excise tax and investment income over and above what we had anticipated. And so, yeah, that would go towards capital under our financial or one-time expenses under our policies. So, obviously, Jen's worked with FinCom and people here to, come up with like the capital expenditures, and then we had some money left over, and we'd originally planned on putting some more money into paving. It's about $250,000 more into paving than what we had originally allocated, and then also a little over $350,000, correct, into the capital stabilization fund, because we took a lot out of it when we bought the Fafford property. And so, as the discussions about the land purchase with UCC have evolved, and we've talked about grant funds and everything, and when it looked like, our ability to apply for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant in early January was not going to necessarily be feasible, we basically put a contingency plan into place to utilize that money, that extra money that we had going towards paving and the capital stabilization fund. What we're doing now is we're just appropriating it into capital so that we could use it for the land purchase if we need to.
Okay.
So
And
just
then that
explain
capital, the use of the capital, we would discuss before it goes forward.
So, yeah, so it's part of the capital plan.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, so could that money go back to road paving if we so chose?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we've already applied for a grant. And we hope to find out in November. And, you know, if we're successful in that, then yeah, absolutely. We could.
And what
go back
about
to
CPC money?
CPC money, I mean, we could go forward with that, but that would be in May. And then, you know, there's also the potential for other grant funds that could open up in March. It's a little bit more complicated and takes a few more partnerships going on as well. But just to remind everybody, so CPC funds are taxpayer funds. Grant funds are not funded by local taxes, so they're like state money. They're other people's money.
There are state and federal taxes coming back to us at some point.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Any other questions on Article 1? Okay. Go ahead.
Article 2 is the budget amendment, so we spent some time at our last meeting sort of talking this through. I think we had a good conversation with FinCom, and so the motion sort of keeps it sort of high level, that we're making the appropriation, increase our capital outlay appropriation from 2.69 to 3.723925, with a difference. And then the Finance Committee made a recommendation that sort of qualifies that will allow us to obligate all of our remaining ARPA funds by the required December 31st date, which I think helps clarify that conversation a bit.
Perfect. Great.
Since we last met, the Board of Assessors also met, so Article 3 is the annual property tax exemption for eligible seniors. And they were able to vote for 12% exemption that will be effective July 1st of this fiscal year.
And they have to apply for that, right? They have to do that.
That's correct, yeah.
Article 4 is a correction from accepting a gift from the Hopkinton Area Land Trust. And it comes from we had accepted parcels of land in May, and there was a typo in that article, and so we wanted to make a correction because it referenced the wrong map, which is actually not a property owned by Hopkinton Area Land Trust.
Okay.
Article 5 authorizes us to borrow $1 million for water main replacement projects.
Okay. Straightforward.
Article 6 is a CPA funding article recommending us to fund a feasibility study, for the Washington Pond restoration. So that pond has had numbers of years of cyanobacteria, and so this will look at a way that they could possibly correct that pond. And so we worked with Framingham, and the portion of the study that we agreed to pay for is $18,750.
And will Framingham be managing that project, or?
They'll be managing it in conjunction with Becca.
Okay.
But they'll we'll work with the same, obviously, consultant, and they'll probably manage that because they're paying significantly more.
Okay.
Yep. Article 7, we discussed it at length at our last meeting as well, and that's to add a new bylaw that for blighted properties, and that would give our building commissioner, Board of Health, Police and Fire a tool to work with homeowners to get them in compliance if they have a blighted property.
Okay.
And then Article 8 is the MBTA Communities Grant, which I think we've discussed a little bit here. And they've had the hearing, the planning board had their public hearing last week, and I do think they had a significant amount of people in the room and then on. So I think there was definitely some good conversation.
And they supported
Yes,
this?
they voted to support it.
Okay, perfect.
And then Article 9 is to authorize the purchase of open space. So this is the 52 acres at the UCC that we just discussed.
Okay.
And that's
Great.
the warrant.
Any question comments on the warrant? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. And just a reminder for those that are watching, special town meeting is Tuesday, November 19th at the Ashland High School. And Michael, have you determined if you're going to do a town manager forum or something for this?
We'll do it, but we just have to work on the date because you're taking some time, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
The date and
To be
time,
determined.
TBD. We're also going to offer again babysitting.
Yes, I heard, saw
Yes.
that. That's
Just-
great.
okay,
So if you're a younger family and your kids can be up a little bit later, please come out and be part of the process. Okay.
And Chair, before we go into the next article,
Yeah.
the next item, on Article 9, I remember seeing something on a side note from Attorney Mead with respect to some wording that was highlighted for the rest of us. Has that been corrected, or is that staying?
Yeah, we're
what's the-
we're still finalizing a bit on the motion. We're
Hmm.
trying to triangulate between, so we've got the grant that we already applied for and making sure the warrant article language complies with everything that they require.
Okay.
We also have future grants that we might apply for, which we want to make sure that we've got everything that we need in that to apply for that. As well as just everything that we need to make sure that we could do the transaction legally.
Got it.
So we're trying to
Yeah.
trying
Don't
to
get
take into
ourselves
account
painted in a
all
corner.
of those things. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we worked on that a little bit today to try to fix that language.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And is this warrant now up on the website so that people
So the
can?
warrant without the motions and the finance, committee
Recommendations.
recommendations is up on the website. I'm hoping to get this, just try to work out these last kinks with the,
Okay.
with how we,
And if someone wanted to go read this beforehand, where would they go find it on the website?
it's under the clerk's, webpage, under town meeting.
Okay.
And then once this, this is normally the book that has all of the information. I'm hoping to get this up as soon as we can. That usually we put right on the
On the front
homepage.
homepage. Perfect. Okay. Great. There's nothing else on the warrant. Moving on to review the Warren Barn Plan. Michael.
Sure,
Along it, right?
and yeah, Claudia and Jen, I mean, both chime in if you feel it's necessary, or even if you don't. So,
People don't usually say that to me, Michael.
and they definitely don't say it to me, Claudia. So I'll take advantage of it when we can, right? So, yeah, as we've discussed, Framingham State, after some discussions, had indicated that they would be interested in
Called
taking
silent.
on. Yeah.
I can't. It's one of those ones I have
Oh,
Oh, it's not a phone.
Not a phone.
Okay.
okay.
So in any case, so Framingham State has been willing to take on the oversight and management of the reconstruction of the replica of the barn, and also they're looking at incorporating that as part of their larger plan for the Framingham State Warren Conference Center, which they have big plans for. We've seen some upgrades over the previous years. Henry's Place, hopefully everybody's had a chance to experience that. But in any case, Framingham State put up close to, well, actually a little over $170,000 to start looking at different plan options for the barn and an ice rink that they would like to put there, as well as develop a cost estimate. And so through, over the last few months, they have put together several different design options, and we've settled on one where basically we do have the rink and we have a barn that is built as a replica on the exterior, but is configured on the inside to help support recreational functions and functions at the rink. And so that plan is what you have in front of you, or one of the documents that you have in front of you. And again, it's a little bit light on detail, but you do have an idea of what the barn would look like. It is a replica. I think the one thing, they did have doors right on the side that, yeah, on these. Yeah, on your second, or, yeah, the second sheet of paper, essentially your third page. Would you say the east elevation, Jim?
East and south.
Yeah. You kind of see that big barn door that's there that would, the sliding ones, yeah. And so that would, again, would be there to help support the, the operations at the rink. So you do have, you do have the elevations here that explain kind of, at least on a very basic level, what's going to be there, how it looks like in configuration with the rink. And then on the last page, or excuse me, is that the last page? No, I'm sorry, it's actually the first page. I'll get my pages correct. You'll actually see what the interior, not renderings of the interior, but what the layout would be, which includes restrooms and the other facilities. So it would have event space, restroom, a couple of closets for janitorial items, as well as the mechanical closet as well.
That's just one floor, correct?
That's correct.
Above?
That's correct, because we're not doing a mezzanine, right, on that one, no. It would be built on slab.
Is it possible to get other I mean, I should know this, but pictures from the street of the old building?
Yeah, I think
I'm
you could
not-
even
I'm
just
trying
Google it,
to-
yeah.
I'm trying to match it with the drawings, and it's not jiving for me. Right, so this is this, so in the second page, the street is on the left side. On the third one, the street is on the front, opposite of what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Not great.
And then
Yeah.
is this one, the street is over, there's no silo in the last two, so it's hard to,
Yeah, where is that? Where is that?
I forwarded it to you. It was this is.
or is
right
the, is
here.
the silo,
It
Oh, yeah.
actually, there is, and then if you can see it. it's-
oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the silo's on this side of the,
Right, it's on the left side.
So, yeah, so actually, Jen reminded me, Dave Foster actually put together a document that had a lot of those pictures, and
Okay.
so we could forward
I
that
can
to.
forward that
yeah, that'd be great, just to sort of
I
get
forwarded- I-
to be reminded what it looked like, to make sure that I mean, if we're gonna get a replica, I believe the goal was to get a real replica so that it looks like what it was, so, okay. So what would you like from us tonight, having just seen this, or can we
Well-
read it and get back to you, any
Well, I haven't
comments?
covered, I want to go through the MOU
Oh,
as
okay,
well. But
perfect.
just
Okay,
from
great.
a plan standpoint, I mean, do you
Okay.
see anything here that kind of jumps out at
Not
you?
offhand, no.
Okay. All right, then we can move on to the MOU.
I do have a random, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
I do
Yeah,
have a
go
random
ahead.
question, just like what is the silo currently being utilized for, or what are the plans for that?
A bomb shelter. No, it is like, I don't
Not
think
the
there's any,
1950s.
They just keep, yeah, they're gonna
It's
keep
just-
it for nostalgia.
It's the-
yeah,
I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
working barn, so
Yeah.
it's not like they're putting grain or corn in it.
Right,
And even the last however many years, it wasn't a
Right.
working barn.
right,
But I think it's the aesthetic of
Got it.
keeping the silo, and the silo's still in good condition.
okay,
Maybe a paint job, but,
yeah.
yeah,
They were looking at that.
At
That's what I-
painting,
yeah,
Okay.
I do think that was.
okay.
okay.
I'm sorry?
What-
Oh.
What storage?
What?
Oh, hot air balloon.
So, you never know. They're good escape vehicles if you need them. So, okay, so moving on to the MOU. So, you have with you a draft of kind of the narrative around it, as well as the MOU document. So, if you don't mind, I'll just go through it. This is what Framingham State had originally started with. Dale had included a lot of stuff related to the Valentine property and kind of what we were thinking about at the time. I told him that was totally
Long gone.
superfluous
Yep.
with this. So we've taken that out. So under proposed approach, which is page 2, the bottom of page 2, you'll kind of see like what a calendar would look like for the programming. So that's the one that starts, with a 7-month period beginning April 1st, going through October 30th, with event space. And it includes the different types of events and supporting FSU programs, and some food service and catering provisions. And then the way the barn is being configured is you could use it in the shoulder seasons, so not just, in the summer. And you'll see there it says rental income to support facility utilities costs, facility upkeep, and town FSU use. And then you have the December through March period, which is more the rental or winter months. So again, we could use it for recreation space, or it would be used for recreation space. And then the facility would be used to support the ice skating function. Again, that would be going through the Warrant Conference Center. And then that would also provide us with recreation opportunities, not only for FSU and the University Community Club people, but also for town residents. So we're talking about like an open skate type of scenario. And, originally when we were thinking about it, we thought we were only going to be able to get it for like, maybe a couple times a month for like open skate. But after talking with Dale, we think, it could be open, significantly more days, in a month for that. It just couldn't conflict with any kind of major events that they would be planning, except that, they're not planning a lot of major events during that time period.
Okay.
So, and again, they would have limited food service offerings, and, the FSU operations, and then also, the rental income would again support facilities, utilities costs, upkeep, and use. Then it just goes into some of the facility requirements, and then it goes into a little bit of the mechanics on how this works, because we're talking about this as between the town and FSU, but actually there's the Massachusetts State College Building Authority, which is really the key player in this, as well as FLIC, which is the basically the operator of the Warrant Conference Center right now. So there's 4 parties that would be that have a role in this.
Michael, before you go forward, just to
Yeah.
clarify for me, please, I know there's gonna be heat and air conditioning to support the shoulder seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like there's some support for winter programming. Would probably the heating aspect of the building, will it support if at some point there was a true winter function? If someone wanted to have some kind of a holiday celebration or party, or is the heat to the extent that it would support it even in the coldest winter months?
Yeah, my understanding is no, right, Jen? Because the heating elements that they were going to get were really just designed almost like you see at the Holliston Historical Society, not necessarily the same type, but the same function. It's not going to have the output that you would need to be able to do it during the cold.
All right, and then if at some point, I mean, obviously, there's some support that's available because they're going to support the recreational ice skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
But if at some point there was a desire to expand that usage to the winter time, do we know if it's being done in a way that it would be, feasible then to add
To
additional
enhance
heating?
the heating facility, the
Yeah.
ability.
Yeah, so Jen, do you remember the exact heating components they were going to use? Jen's done a lot of work on this.
I would have to look, I know that they were going to heat the bathrooms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'd be, and so my guess is we probably could expand,
Well,
but we can look at the,
You would probably need to have ductwork put in
Right.
place to make it. It sounds like if they're just going to have it to where you could do it in the bathrooms, it's probably more like those mini split type of systems.
Right.
Whereas I think if you probably could utilize mini splits throughout the whole area to make it compatible with the colder months. Probably.
Except that I'm imagine that the ceilings, it's not only one floor.
Right.
So the ceiling's
It's gonna
gonna be
pretty
really high.
Yeah.
So it would be a challenging area to heat.
Yeah. And then there's also, so you're talking about in the future though, right, Claudia?
Yeah, I am. I'm talking about just, set yourselves up, unless the expense is prohibitive, you set yourself up to be able to do whatever you might want in the future, right?
Right.
I mean, I think it has potential for uses in the wintertime as well.
Yeah.
Certainly people get married in the winter, and it's a beautiful sight.
Yes.
So that's all, but, I mean, those are just what my
So
questions.
there's a comment in here, I'm just reading, a preferred option for providing heating capacity to support shoulder season has been identified through the study, including associated project scope, electrical and HVAC impact and costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
But again, that's the
So-
shoulder season.
So that's that shoulder season.
Yeah.
So that, might wanna double check. Okay.
And again, I don't know, it might not be sound.
So the months that it
Financially.
will be shut down,
Run through the
Roughly.
town,
do we have
that
a
arrangement.
timeframe as to when that
Right.
particular building will be shut down for the winter months?
Well, not completely, because they're gonna access the bathrooms for the skating rink.
Okay.
But you can't, it won't be warm inside, except in the bathrooms, that's what I'm getting.
What is, I guess.
And there's exterior access to the bathrooms, you don't have to go in through the building, right? At least that was the intent.
They were trying to design it so that,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't be going through the
Going
barn
through the- okay,
necessarily. That's, yeah,
Yeah, if you look at
Okay,
this
I see
plan.
that, yep.
Yeah,
that was the intent.
so,
Because that's, the proximity to that location is really close to Henry's place. And you'd probably see those people utilizing the restrooms in that location. And I'm sure that's not what they want at that.
Yeah, but Henry's isn't open during the day, is it?
I think it's open during the afternoon, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit, if you remember, there's a very big slope, to get
Oh, yeah.
from there to Henry's place.
Nice
Um,
sliding hill.
I was about to say, and if they don't salt that up pretty good,
Nice sliding hill.
yeah.
So the way it's set up now, doesn't seem like, the bathrooms are heated, but like if you have people using that ice skating rink and they're out there, like, I guess where would people warm up? I mean, or are they just kind of assuming
car.
people go in their cars? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fire pits.
A lot of
Fire pits and-
ice skating places that are outside don't have,
Yeah,
places to go sit and warm up, so.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at one point they had looked at sort of like having something like a fire pit. I
Yeah.
think also from the street, it sort of took away from the replica,
Okay.
which we were sort of
Yep.
trying to make sure that still looks similar, but then also the cost,
Sure.
sort of,
Yeah.
sort of a nice to have as opposed to
You
needing
know,
it for function.
And I don't think it's like anywhere in here, but I think it's important to note, I mean, Framingham State is looking at a pretty decent-sized parking area
Yeah.
to support this.
Okay.
Especially handicap, because there's nothing there right
Yeah.
now to support handicap parking.
So, but I think there's gonna be some significant grading and stormwater work that needs to be done, and has been accounted for in the budget.
I was just gonna ask, is that part of those figures that are in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
To,
part of-
to the point of, being able to take cover, so to speak, will the barn itself, is the plan that it's actually going to be locked so that it wouldn't be someplace where, even though it's not heated, you can't go in and take shelter? Is that true, or we don't know?
I don't know if they've gotten that far. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it was important when they were designing to make sure that they could
Lock
sort
it
of-
up, yeah.
Or, could separate the two, so you could still access the bathroom without having to access the barn, but I'm not sure
Okay.
the FSU team has sort of,
I mean, obviously,
on
there's
those
going to
details.
have to be it's going to require a staff person at some point to come and open up the bathrooms and then lock them up at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, we should also remember, actually, the Henry Warren house is not that far away either. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if they plan on utilizing that also, in some way, shape, or form as
The
part
white
of this whole.
building there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all the, the conference room spaces and everything.
it's a nice space,
So,
Yeah.
they really do have, big plans, for, the property.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
they are good plans.
yeah, and so just kind of moving along to the mechanics, I'll let Jen speak a little bit more to that in terms of like who leases what to whom, and just some of the financial arrangements. And I'll just say this with the caveat, some of the things that you see in here, we haven't reached a full agreement with Dale yet, or the MSCBA, because they're involved, but it's what we have.
Yeah, so anything you see sort of in the track changes
So
is
we're
sort of
gonna-
sort of what we're proposing, but haven't had that conversation. So we would lease the barn to FSU through an state agreement, and we would work with town council on sort of the terms of that. Perhaps looking at a 20-year lease, since it's such a large investment, and sort of having an opportunity to reassess terms every 4 years, so 5 different times throughout the term, and they seem open to that. In terms of looking at sort of, obviously normally when we lease a property, we get rent, but that, sort of how we're gonna work this will be slightly different. It will be managed by, they have a property management, currently it's Flick. It will be managed by them. They'll set the rates in terms of they'll look at similar rates so that they can, for rental rates in terms of the use of the property, and then the facility revenue would basically go to facilitate the operating costs. So, much like we were sort of thinking about way back when with Valentine, you'd have to bring in revenue to sort of make that building self-sustaining. So they would take 40% of the revenue, and that would be for the management cost, and or at least that's what I'm proposing, 40% for the projected revenue for management costs, and then also any of the operating costs, including utilities. I'm recommending maybe they take 10% of the total revenue and put it in an account for maintenance, and that way we're not sort of having a conversation on the back end and trying to split it after, so take 10% of all the profits, and then the remaining 50% potentially split between the town and FSU, and also having some opportunities for us to have. They had talked about maybe doing that in the terms of a credit, so that maybe we're credited anytime we want to use the building, but we have to sort of work that out. But also, I'm hoping that we'll able to get at least 2 meetings, town meetings, like maybe our retreat, or maybe the community, the school committee's annual retreats off-site. We used to do them over there.
Yeah.
It was lovely. Without cost, without going, whether it's going towards our revenue or going towards our credits, depending how that works out. And then they could do potentially the same thing. 2 of their events don't go towards the revenue or the credits. So that's sort of where we are in terms of the operation of the MOU.
Yeah, so how does the board feel about that, those parameters?
I don't know, Claudia, if you don't mind, I think it's a nice idea. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just have to make sure that the town is protected over any liability aspect of it, especially when it comes to skating. If it's, I don't know where that ice skating rink is going to be. Is it going to be partially on our property? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
where's the liability falling at?
Yeah.
And make sure that the town is covered that way. I mean, I like the idea. I think Framingham State would probably benefit by this more than I think we will, because of the different activities they have, especially in the summertime with the weddings and other things that they have, because that's a great site for photographs for weddings, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's kind of the prime,
My son
yeah.
was married up there, so yeah, that's where they took the pictures of the barn. So
Yeah.
now with a beautiful new barn, I mean, does any of that proceeds come to the town in some way, as part of this memorandum of understanding as a whole, and not just, certain activities?
Yeah, so certainly the use, what I'm proposing is that over and above management, and then hopefully some maintenance cost, revenue would come back to us for the use of the actual barn. In terms of renting it out, and then us getting revenue because they're using our barn, we hadn't discussed that. That's something that's happened. I mean, that always happened, when we were going to invest just to replicate the barn. We weren't anticipating any revenue coming back to us for the sort of the use for photos. So
Right.
we hadn't really discussed that
Okay.
in particular, but,
Yeah.
the liability piece we have discussed, and we've asked them to, you know, as part of this agreement, they would have to add us as a named person on their insurance, and so.
On the insurance money, okay.
Yeah. And so, Joe, they're also putting in more money for the project
Okay.
overall. So originally, because this project exceeded the original budget significantly, and, you know, originally the concept was basically we would split it in half. And so, you know, Claudia, Jen, and I made the case, like, well, our goal was really just to get the replica of the barn
Replicate the
built.
barn, right.
And so, to his credit, you know, Dale said, "Oh, well, you're right," and so reconfigured the formula to where.
He was open to the.
Yeah, so when
Yeah,
we're
Dale's
paying
been
our
good to work
portion,
with
yeah, he's been
on
really,
this.
yeah,
Fair
he's
to
been really
work
great
with.
to work with, and I think really if you look at what we're investing, it is just the replica,
Yeah.
like that's sort of how he's sort of thinking about it, you know, it's not like we're gonna just take the project and cut it a certain percentage, it's really taking the cost of what it would cost us to do the replica. You know, except that they're also taking the oversight and all of that, which is
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely worth something.
definitely.
You know, I
worth
just would
something.
like to add that Framingham State has really been a great partner here, you know, in my mind, because they are helping us to not only have the replica back, or a replica, but also to have it have a purpose,
Yeah.
you know, that we're not responsible for, right? It won't just be something that we have to maintain so that it doesn't fall down again. It will serve a purpose. It's a beautiful piece of property. It is a beautiful signature area, really, of our community. And so it's very exciting. I think I loved their ice skating idea, just because it's rare now. So many people spend significant money to have an ice skating rink in their yards, and
Yeah.
how often do they freeze, right? So, and it's an opportunity for people to come together, you know, and so I think it's just a great plan, and they have been very willing to negotiate, and obviously when the funds came, or when the cost estimates came back so much out of alignment with what had been anticipated, it was really important in my eyes that they stepped up to the plate the way they did.
Yeah.
The one question I have is, do we know what it's gonna cost to run this? I mean, obviously, on some level, you don't know until you're using it, right? And you don't know, it depends on how many events it's being used for, et cetera. But just overall, how much does it cost for it to be there? And who's responsible for those costs if it never got rented, never made any money? Who pays for the existence of it, I guess?
So Framingham State and Flick.
Yeah.
Is
So
their
that we would
contract.
have no responsibility for, great, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I think their lease will be written up that they would be responsible for the,
So if they're not making any money on it, I mean, then we wouldn't be either, but we wouldn't be liable for anything.
Correct, and so, I mean, they're taking on the risk
Yeah, right.
associated with that, because they're also incurring all of the expenses associated with running it, whether they get revenue or not.
Right,
So maintenance and lawn care, the whole nine yards, that falls under their purview and not us?
Correct.
Okay.
And so as Jen, you know, pointed out, like, so a portion of the revenue that comes in will go to maintain, you know, to maintain the property through Flick and Framingham State. And then there's a portion of it portion of the revenue that we will split with Framingham State. And we're still working with them in terms of what that looks like, you know, between, if it's gonna be like credits, you know, for us using the property, or if it's money coming back to us. Actually, it's, the way it's written, it's kind of both, right? So it'd be credits, and if we didn't utilize the credits, we would get it back as a check at the end of the year.
And will those
So-
monies be put into some sort of enterprise fund just specifically for
we
that?
probably put in the
location?
rental, we have a facility rental account.
Okay,
Yeah.
And so that's where the rent from Clover
Okay.
Road, that's
Yep.
where any rental costs come in from.
okay.
Well, we were gonna talk a little bit about that, because, one of the things, I think,
Oh, that's right.
you know, we could utilize it for is also to help maintain, not just our buildings, but some of the properties that we own. And, you know, could we accomplish that through the building rental account, or is it, you know, because if it's a building rental account, does it have to be buildings? So we're looking into that as well.
Okay, be good to know what you find out and
Yeah.
determine how to do that. Okay.
So,
Makita, comments, questions? No? Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think, you know, the points that have been brought up about insurance and then just how we're gonna get to use it and things like that. Again, we're not taking a vote tonight. It's really just
Correct.
to review this. So I would say, read it through again. If you have any other questions or concern, make sure you get them to Michael and or Jen before.
I'm gonna send them to you, so you can send them off, send them directly, so that way you have an idea of what our concerns may be.
Okay, send them to me,
Okay.
and then I'll forward them on
Okay.
all together. And that way, if there's if there's duplicates or the same or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say by the end of,
Yeah, so just one point. So they are willing to kind of take the risk of going ahead and start preparing for the ice rink. So,
Okay.
So they were gonna look at potentially starting that was it November 5th, right?
Well,
Week of
well, yeah,
November
we'd
5th?
have to give them a user agreement to access our property, and that would go through March, so like this whole winter.
Okay.
Sort of prep out a temporary rink, same type of, they'd add us to their insurance, that same
Right.
type of
Okay.
thing.
All that
Right,
stuff.
okay.
will
You
be
know, if
covered.
anything has to be,
Yeah, if
you
something
know, they're
yeah.
basically, if
Yeah.
they need to go back, they have to go back, but then we'll work on the full, you know, MOU and
Okay.
lease. But in this winter, they sort of wanted to try to
Temporary.
without the building.
Okay, so will you have that for us to also or is that just something that the two of you can do with them?
We can do that with
Okay,
them.
okay.
yeah. But just wanted to give
Just
you a
want- yeah,
heads
just in
up,
case you
so.
Okay.
saw it.
Okay, so if you have any comments on this, I would say no later than Monday. Is that too late for you guys? Or do you need it by like Friday so you
Friday,
can incorporate it?
Friday would be good, because again, like I said, we haven't reached a full agreement with Dale on this.
Okay.
Wanted to make sure that you were okay with the language that we were kind of sticking with.
So far, yeah.
And, again, I think the only thing that could be a sticking point would be kind of the way the split would work, but I really don't think,
No, they seem pretty open,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this program is the BYOS, bring your own skates.
Seems that way,
Yeah.
yes, at least right now. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise they have to invest in skates and
Well, that's
store
it.
those
That's what I
and,
was thinking, that whether or not
yeah.
Yeah, at least for
Yeah.
right now, I mean.
Yeah, just one question for you, like, I know, like, Loring, you know, that's used all the time. It's usually for organized activities, and like, you know, maybe once every 2 months, it seems like they have an open skate night. Do you
Oh,
know
that's
if
it?
Yeah,
They used to have it once a week.
I don't think it's once a week.
Not anymore, they used to.
They used
I
to.
mean, years ago, it's been a long
I
time
don't
since
think
I've
it's
gone
once a
skating
week
there,
anymore.
but.
Yeah, like on Saturday afternoons
Yes,
or something.
it was like there was one
yeah.
at Saturday at one time and one
Yeah.
on Sundays at a different time. Again, it's been a long time since I've done that.
They might have open skate, but I think it's at unusual times.
Yeah.
I think it's at,
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's at times when
But do you
kids
know
aren't.
of any other community, like,
Yeah.
is there any other, like, town
Skating rink? Not that I'm
City
aware of,
facility?
not nearby.
that allows you to, okay.
Where?
Northborough. And Northborough, Westborough.
They have community ones? Okay,
Okay.
good to know.
Any other questions or comments? If not, if you go through this, try to get me any comments by Friday, so I can forward them to Michael by Friday. Wonderful, okay. Thank you. Moving on. Updates on the 40B project approved by MassHousing, 250 units at the mill site on Main Street, and 226 units at 61 Waverly Street. There are some letters in the package. Michael, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so kind of old news by now,
Yeah.
but for those of you that don't know, we did, and I will add, unfortunately, receive letters from MassHousing granting a site eligibility for both 40B projects. Again, one at the mill site and then one at Waverly Street. So what that means for people, I have found a lot of people don't understand the process, so I'll take a little time to just explain that a bit. So once MassHousing grants their approval, which we will say it comes in that form of a site eligibility letter, so that gives the developer the ability to apply to the local zoning board of appeals. So our local zoning board of appeals would get an application, and at that point in time, if it's a complete application that gets stamped in, the zoning board has 30 days to open a public hearing, and that public hearing has to be completed within 180 days. And when I say public hearing, that's an opportunity for the public to be heard, but that's also basically the whole time that you have to review the documents, basically negotiate any kind of issues or changes that come up through that process. You have a very limited window, unless you and the applicant agree to extend it. So it has to be by both parties' agreement. And what we have found is that usually you can get that continuance. The developer is usually interested in trying to come to some agreement that would work for them, and then obviously the town would like to have as much opportunity as they can to try to identify and resolve any issues that they have. And so the ZBA has the ability at the end of the public hearing to either approve the project as it is, deny the project totally, or approve it with conditions. And so that would be the decision of the ZBA. And so the next step, though, is where 40B becomes, and I'll just say, dangerous for communities or a problem for communities, is that if if it's denied, or if it's approved with conditions that the developer says make it uneconomical, they have the ability to appeal that decision to what's known as the Housing Appeals Committee, which is a special state entity that only hears 40B projects. And so when it gets to that point, I don't know if a full analysis has been done in terms of how many approvals or denials the HAC has issued, but from everything that I've seen and from everything that I've heard and from talking to Attorney Mead, who's very familiar with this, like 90% of the time they find in favor of the developer. And so basically they would overturn the ZBA's decision. So ZBA could, yes, deny a project, but then the next step, the developer would take that to the HAC, and the HAC would more than likely override the ZBA's decision. And so then we lose all ability to insert conditions or, put any kind of controls in place. So that's generally the process from the ZBA. I should also note that the project, if it impacts the wetland, would need to go to the Conservation Commission, not under the town's bylaw, but under the State Wetlands Protection Act. And so those laws have to be followed as well. And so that process goes through. Yeah, so that's just kind of a very succinct way of talking about the process overall. I'll pause there if there's any questions.
I do have a question, and it bothers me to the fact that the builders have the ability to appeal. Why don't the municipalities have the ability to appeal a decision made by MassHousing? Why hasn't that been tried? It just doesn't make any sense. They can appeal, but the municipalities can't. It doesn't make any sense. That's not fair.
Oh, Joe, I think the whole thing's not fair.
I mean, a lot of things aren't fair, but still.
The whole 40B program doesn't completely make sense, right?
Well, then
so
maybe
that's
you're right. It doesn't make sense. So maybe when it started out, there was a good purpose and intent for it to happen, but now it's just gone beyond control. Is that you can't limit things. It's just you're stuck with it, and you just have to live with it. So maybe legislature needs to reopen this discussion.
the thing that I've seen is I've spoken with other communities about 40Bs, right? Either a couple of things are in place. Either the community already has their 10%, so they're safe from 40B, or they have housing production plans and production has been going on, so they're safe from 40B. We, as we know, are in a very unusual predicament because we had our production plan, but because of things beyond our control, we weren't able to meet those steps. So the Mass Housing is, we're looking for housing, and in both of these letters, it's pretty clear they approve these because we are, in their mind, and we're about 380 units short from our 10% of affordable housing. These two projects will help us get there. And we could, we could try to push back, but I don't know that that's where we want to spend our time and energy. I think working with the developers might be a better strategy.
Well, I mean, with all good intents and purposes, I mean, when we first met with the developer at 6010 Main Street, second row, the question was asked, are you gonna help work on the changing of the intersection and the redevelopment of the intersection? And he point blank said, no, that's on you.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not on you. It's not on, excuse me, it shouldn't be on us. You're the one that's making this a problem. You need to be part of the solution. And if that's the mindset he's gonna have, then there's gonna be some issues. Serious issues.
To Joe's point about appealing, being able to appeal, right? So, can we sue? So, here's some of my rationale after having thought about this, is when, we were right on track, right, to get it to safe harbor. Mm-hmm. And two things happened, right? In one instance, the landowner took the developer to court because the developer was able to get permitted without having to have a zoning change made, which was part of the PNS, I'm correct, right? And I think the rationale, I had to think about that for a while. I think the rationale why the landowner says he's suing is because now he thinks, well, it was worth more money because you didn't have to go through the zoning change process, right? So, I mean, I would guess. I try to figure out what he's suing on, what grounds. But in any case, doesn't matter. He is. Okay? Then the other parcel, that landowner, during the period of time when he would have been moving forward with the project, we had a pandemic. And at that point in time, the market changed dramatically.
And interest rates changed.
And interest rates changed. And the financing no longer became...
Financeable.
Right?
Right.
So why isn't that then showing that we were moving in the direction? It was a freaking pandemic, people, that has caused this,
And
right?
Claudia, all this was put in the letters to Mass Housing. This was relayed to them in numerous ways.
Yeah, and so
Right?
again, who can we sue? I mean, everybody can sue everybody over anything they want.
Yeah.
Except that we are short 381 units of affordable housing to get us to our 10%. I mean, those are the hard facts, right? Granted, we tried doing everything to get ourselves there, and yes, we've built
But
a
they
lot
give
of housing.
credit, they give credit for making progress towards,
Right.
right?
And we
Wi-
stopped making progress, so we
Because
lost
of
our
the
credit.
pandemic.
Yeah. Right, but other communities were able to keep moving forward during
I don't know what community, who knows what
Yeah.
community moved forward during the pandemic.
I mean, it is really frustrating because I think for all of us, because we kind of knew the rules, right? And we felt like
put
we made
things
a
in
good
place to
faith
protect
effort
ourselves, right?
to play by those rules.
Right.
And for circumstances beyond our control, things didn't work out the way that they were planned, the way we planned them. And, nobody's taking that stuff into account, it feels like. And they're not, clearly. I mean, that's Mass Housing certainly isn't. I think if you're going to talk about using, funds for, legal action, I think, you probably want to think about where do you want to, where's your best bang for your buck? Should you look at doing something with MassHousing, which I thought that when the whole MassHousing process was going through, like, wait, there's no way we can challenge that. And there's really no way to challenge it. We could sue them, but it would probably be thrown out pretty quickly. Or do we want to utilize those legal funds to basically really try to work with the developer within the process to try to come up with something that is better? I don't want to say it's best for us, but is better and something that that we could move forward with. Do we want to utilize those legal funds to basically support us if, we do move forward, or the ZBA does move forward with a denial or an approval with conditions, and try to fight that out at the HAC? If you just look at statistics and the percentages and all of that and the data, it's clear that your best bet's probably to invest that money in option B. But again, I realize this isn't just a data-driven decision. So,
Well, and what you said, anyways, option B doesn't sound like it's viable, right?
well, I think everybody can agree that what is being proposed is not great. I shouldn't say everybody, because there have been people who like it. Very few, but there are a few that do. I think where the biggest rub for this community is going to be is what can we find agreement on as to what's acceptable.
And the other,
That's gonna be hard.
the other thing that I thought about was what if we, can we petition the legislature to, put some kind of a stay for a period of time that relating to COVID? So in other words, say that certain things, like, I know this has been done in other, unrelated instances where the legislature has said, all right, this law isn't going to apply for this period of time because of COVID.
We could certainly ask. I mean, whether, my understanding is the conversations really happening more at the legislative level are really kind of going in the opposite direction, which is, I mean, whether they should require developers to do 25%, or should they make, lower that to make it more financeable,
Ridiculous.
So I think that might be a tough, uphill battle, just being.
No, getting
No,
petitioning the
to
legislature to
petition
put,
the legislature,
you know.
right? They're working now, which is very unusual. They're trying to finish some bills and get some stuff done before the election. And then they won't be doing much between November and January when new people get sworn in and stuff like that. And we're under a gun in regards to our timelines and when we have to start doing hearings and things.
Yeah.
So, if I may, Madam Chair, it really bothers me. That night when we got the notification, I did not sleep at all night. I did not sleep at all that night. I was up all night long. I was worrying. I was tossing and turning, because the dynamics of this town is going to change so dramatically with these two projects that you hear people out in the street saying, Ashland is never going to look the same. And you know what? You're absolutely right. Ashland will never look the same with these projects if we don't minimize what the buildings themselves will look like. And so my point would be, is that the select board, the zoning board, and the planning board, we need to be like a tech review group and decide what we should be working towards as a whole to make these projects more viable for the town. And not fight, not the word fight, but not go against what each one is saying, maybe, but to work jointly with each group to make sure that the best interests of the town are at the forefront.
Well, we had discussed trying to have some kind of committee, not necessarily the whole select board, the whole planning board, I don't think the ZBA can be involved because they're the ones who are gonna be
Make the
hearing it
decision, right.
and making the decision, but we had talked about potentially creating a committee, right, that would get the input from the different boards, and they would then work with the developer. And that was something we had discussed, right? Because otherwise, every meeting, if all 5 of us are sitting there and all 5, you're having to deal with posting and open meeting law, and I think it would be, I don't know that the developer would be that willing to sit there with everybody and have a discussion. So I think we have talked about having a discussion, but it's how can we do it in a way that the town benefits in the best, but we work with the developer, right? I mean, I just want to make one point, Joe. You said, the town is never going to be the same with these 2 projects. That's what was said when Cirrus was built. And there's more traffic, but other than more traffic and a few more people in town,
Location.
great, yes, the location is different. You're right.
Location is
I
totally
agree.
different.
But as Michael said, there are people, I've mentioned the project to numerous people, and there are people who are looking forward to having people living downtown. The issue that we have is the size and the intersection, right?
Right.
Yeah. To Joe's point, if I could just kind of move
Sure.
a little bit into some of kind of the sequencing that we've been working on and talking with, obviously with Pete and then also with Lisa and John Trefethen, the ZBA, because and just to give you an update, the developer for the mill did apply, did submit an application. We have reviewed it. We have determined that it was incomplete, and so as today we made that determination, and so we're sending it back.
So does that stop the clock from starting if we determine it incomplete?
Yeah, we haven't stamped it in.
Yeah, we haven't stamped it in. So when we stamp it in and it
That's
gets
when
stamped
the
in with the
clock
clerk,
starts.
that's when it starts.
Okay.
So what we've talked about is because we could potentially have 2 of these going on at the same time. So the ZBA will, under the worst case scenario, ZBA would be meeting twice a month. And the way John would like to have it is so one meeting a month would be focused towards the mill building. The other night would be focused towards, obviously, Waverly. So the first meeting is to go ahead and open up the public hearing, and then they have to choose, the ZBA has to basically accept the peer review consultants that we would utilize. And so we're starting to assemble that roster. So getting a civil engineer, and also getting a wetlands reviewer. Traffic consultant is key. Unfortunately, they snagged a really good traffic consultant before we could, but we've got a pretty good lineup. And then I also think a design consultant would be important as well. And so get that lined up. And so that first meeting, the ZBA would accept the peer reviewers. And then the point would be to get the information from the developer in time so the peer reviewers can take a look at it, turn it back around, and give the ZBA at least a week of time to review it before they go to the next meeting to have on that subject. And so what they also plan on doing is to have a meeting dedicated to each subject, like one dedicated to traffic, one dedicated to environmental, one dedicated to design. So that's kind of the general overall plan. So in terms of the priorities and things, so Joe, that you're talking about, so the board got a lot of information from all the other boards and the departments, and so I think you have what everybody's concerns are. I think you actually kind of went through and actually prioritized it a little bit too. So we've got that in place.
Okay.
So let me ask a question. You mentioned environmental. With the mill building project specifically, we've got Nyanza issues. How does the state, because I know we were talking like state, they still have to basically comply with state regulations. The EPA, and we know, is starting the second phase of their,
Remediation.
which affects kind of our downtown area. So how would that, like, do they have someone specifically from the EPA that would be involved in the project, or how does that work?
Yeah, the people that have been involved with Nyanza on behalf of EPA and DEP would be involved, and I'm sure they would have also other professionals to support them as well. So the mill is a little bit unique, remember, because it's got that AUL as part of the deed, that activity and use limitation that restricts residential use at this point in time. And so part of this process is that the applicant will need to demonstrate to the state, to DEP and the EPA as well as us, but DEP and EPA control that AUL. They will have to demonstrate to them that what they are going to be putting in place is sufficient enough to protect residential residents in order to remove that AUL. And then we should, I feel strongly that we should also have our own like licensed site professional as part of the construction aspects as well.
So would we bring someone in for that, or, okay.
Yeah.
And that's all expected to still be within that timeframe that you outlined, correct?
Yeah.
So it's a condensed timeline.
Yeah, it's
for
very
even things-
expedited.
For even something like environmental, which would be a huge component of, I assume, a lot of work on both ends.
You know, 40B is so messed up. Sorry, I'm getting agitated, you can tell. I mean, you don't even have to put in stamped, like, all you need is schematics as part of your submission. You don't even have to put like fully designed drawings in as part of your application.
Which makes no sense.
Makes
I mean, what are they gonna,
absolutely no
they're not gonna
sense.
build from schematics. They have to have designs, they have to have full developed plans to build from. They just don't have to. So they submit with schematics, but at some point, they're gonna have to have full-fledged design plans to build from.
Yes,
But
but
they
that's
don't have
after
to
they
show
get
them to
approval.
us.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
after
I
they
see.
get approval.
So,
Okay.
with respect to that, how do you get approval on a schematic and not a design plan? That doesn't make any sense.
That's,
It really doesn't make any sense.
well, I would think part of it is, right, is the schematic is what they think is what they are gonna build, right? If they have to submit, so here's here's at least my perception of this, right, is they're not gonna do the fully blown, filled out plans and the building plans until they know they have approval, right? Why would they spend money on full buildable plans until they know they're allowed to build it? Right?
That's gonna, and then,
Because
usually
that's what you have to do.
right.
That's right, and that's
Thank
what
you.
makes the difference here,
That's what
right?
you have to do. Thank you.
Understand is they're trying to help developers build affordable housing. That's what 40B is all about, is trying to get more affordable
We
housing.
know what it's about.
Yeah.
We know what it's
Yeah,
about.
the thing is that when you say affordable, the affordability aspect of it better come
That's the
to
other
80.
thing. We
it
know
better
what
be
it's
an
about,
80
but
to
what does it
to
really do? What
60%.
has it done?
Right. That blows my mind. See, that
If it's
falls under that
so
veil.
effective since 1969, then why are people moving out of the state?
Because
Or-
we
or
haven't
even-
built enough housing in the last 20 years.
Well, this has been in effect since
Yeah,
1969.
but people aren't building it. I mean, as a state, right? The amount of housing that we built from like 1970 to 1990, and then from 1990, we built half the number of housing from 1990 to 2020 in this state, the whole state,
Right.
half the amount of housing. So that's why we're seeing the high pricing, and that's why we're seeing the
And
rent.
And 40B didn't make us build more. That's what,
No, the urban plight did.
40B hasn't worked. It hasn't done what it was intended to do.
The folks moving out of the cities that came out here,
Yeah.
that wanted to get away from the cities and some of the traps that were going along, that's,
Well, I mean,
The
I think
building
that was some of the, so, again, just, I mean, I think everybody around here knows, but, anybody who's still watching,
Sorry, folks.
no, so back in
near and dear to me.
1969, 1970, some of the suburbs were making it so restrictive to build affordable housing, the state felt like this was something that they needed to do.
And that's why there's
And-
the requirement to get to 10%.
And,
In many communities, it has.
well, to the 10%,
To the
there's
10%.
there's so many definitions of success. So
Right.
two things I will just,
Well, I think according to the governor, success is people don't move out of the state.
and Claudia, you and I've talked, I don't know if things like MBTA housing, or, I understand the problem, and I believe the problem is
Yeah.
real. I'm not necessarily sure what they're putting forth as a solution is gonna actually
That's what I'm
solve it,
saying.
but that's another.
It hasn't,
That's
That's
another
another
discussion.
But 2 points I want to make. So the mill site is extremely complicated on a number of levels from an infrastructure standpoint. So obviously you've got the whole Nyanza thing, which is one thing. But number two, just think of like sewer capacity. So, you know, in some cases, we might be required to make sure that there's enough sewer capacity. But most of the time, when you're talking about a sewer capacity issue with a 40B or a housing development project, you're talking about stuff like the size of the pipe and the capacity of your pump stations.
Right.
In our case, the biggest restriction is an IMA with another municipality.
Right.
An agree-
That we can't increase our sewage.
Exactly.
So that's the email that I sent to you a while back, maybe a couple of weeks ago after we got that letter, sorry, Sanjay. Why can't we use that as a tool in our toolbox about restricting the number of units because we don't have the sewer capacity?
Joe, I think that's a great thing. I just don't want to, basically let everybody know that that could
I'm
be,
sorry, forget what I just said.
you know, kind of, could be a direction, right? So in any case, that's number one. Number two, I think, you know, we all have these visualizations of what this is going to be and how impactful it's going to be. And I think we've experienced this with every development that has been proposed and built. I would just encourage us to, let's get our peer reviewers to look at this
Yes.
stuff and give us an accurate viewpoint of what the impacts are actually going to be, and
Yep.
make sure that we can follow it along there. I mean, for me, and this is just me, I think getting that fifth story off
That'll be
and
huge.
changing the design
Right, so that
aesthetics
it looks, yeah.
and I think reconfiguring that entranceway from a common sense standpoint, it seems like it might work, but the traffic engineer might have a totally different
Right.
take on it.
Well,
But
and things like traffic needs to be studied at various times during the day while school is in session, not during a summer, not during holiday breaks, right? Those are things that we've pushed before that we need to make sure they're doing again.
In certain
Yeah.
hours of the day.
Right, that's what I said, certain times of the day
Yeah.
and when school,
Sorry, I didn't-
yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
when the train goes by.
right?
So yeah, so that's kind of an update on where we are, kind of what the plan is going forward. But we
Okay.
do, and Yolanda and Brandy and I talked about before our next meeting, potentially scheduling a session where we could talk a little bit more about
An exec
kind of
session
that
or something.
strategy.
Yeah.
You know,
So we'll let people know
what we
when we,
discussed
what we
before.
decide to, and when.
Michael, one thing I would like to suggest is maybe, because there is a lot of confusion about 40B and MBTA, is that we have a handout at town meeting that would just kind of outline the difference between the two, just a one-page.
I think that's actually a good point. Yeah,
That's a great idea.
yeah.
That'd be
And,
extremely helpful.
and Pete and I were.
If we could get the cheat sheet available to download before town meeting, that would
Yeah.
be
That would be even
even
better.
better, right? So,
Yeah,
because there is a lot of confusion between the two.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, concerns? No? Okay, moving on. Notification of a grant award. Michael, you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so Sam has been, so Sam has received quite a few awards, and I'm trying to remember the exact details for this one. This one, I believe, is, you know, Framingham was doing the geothermal work, and actually, just before I go forward, let me just pull it up again. Or do you, Actually,
It's in
you
our
know,
packet, yep.
yeah. Do you want to, oh, I'll just go to the packets then. I wanted to get some more of the backup info.
So it's a community climate action guide for residential decarbonization. So working with the sustainability committee and looking at ways that individuals can decarbonize.
Perfect.
Yeah, and this is really to look at groups, like, is there a way that community neighborhoods, is there a way that there's maybe places in which, like, we're doing public infrastructure, that there would be a way to then
Yep.
work, so sort of doing that kind of education
Yep.
about how you could possibly pool resources.
Great.
So, I think
It's great when we get
$15,000.
grant, you
Yeah,
know,
it's
that way
15K.
for resources of putting forums together, getting information printed or digitally created.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of outreach and
Good.
education.
I was gonna say, she's doing some pop-ups in like neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's for a different project, but
Okay.
yes.
And when's the pumpkin smash? You're
It's the week after.
Next week, a week from.
Next
A
week.
week from
Yeah.
this weekend.
Yeah.
The what?
Pumpkin
the
smash.
pumpkin smash.
I haven't heard about the pumpkin smash. How did I miss out?
Where are they gonna drop them from? I think the fire department should come over with a
With the tower
ladder.
truck.
Do it like the kids do the egg drop at the Mindas.
I just
Yeah.
wanna
Drop-
take, I just
really
wanna
want-
take
So-
some
Do we really
hammers
want
to some.
pumpkin all
Don't tell
over
the
the corner
DPW I
spot?
suggested.
So we're working
We
with
really want pumpkin all over the corner spot?
we're working with Black Earth Compost.
Oh,
And
nice.
So yeah, so it's a
When is that?
It's not the weekend right after.
So it's not the second, it's the 11th.
Nine.
Ninth.
Ninth or
Ninth, I think
something
it was
like
the
that?
9th.
Okay.
and we were talking with
They're
the
gonna have a
Federated.
donut truck too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, there was a lot, there's some,
Yeah,
games, some kind
there was
of,
some excitement around the
Carnival
donut
games.
truck in my household.
Yeah.
just so.
Yeah, the whole pumpkin
Whatever
smash
gets you there.
thing
that's
is,
the biggest
Yeah.
attraction.
Cool.
I
Oh,
personally
no,
got
my
excited
back
when I
was
heard
just
about the pumpkin
bureaucratic.
smash
Me too.
thing,
Me
so
too.
I'm
I
gonna
was
make it
nuts.
point to
Contracts.
Don't worry about it.
crap.
We're
I think we
good.
Yeah,
probably
sorry
get
about
some
that.
television coverage on that.
I definitely think we should get some.
You know
saw
something?
Well,
I saw
I think
something
we
on
should
the
paint
news,
faces
another
on them.
community. I think it was
Yeah,
only
that's
in
how
Boston today.
it came up
Yeah,
in
yeah.
my house, is
Yeah.
the other,
It's like, we're doing that too. Yeah.
nice.
So the Federated Church, I think, is going to have some extra pumpkins because they got delivered like the remnants of another order. So
Oh.
we could have
They
quite a
still
few.
got a lot of pumpkins sitting over there.
Yeah, they got.
Giving some out today as part
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah?
the mini ones
Oh,
to the
cool.
kids.
They were the last stop, and I guess the
just for
previous
smashing,
one.
they got.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, there's that. Sorry.
Okay. Moving on, discuss and review timeline for appointments and reappointments to boards and committees. So this is something, and I think I've spoken to all of you about this, that I've been pushing for a long time. And I'd like to create a subcommittee, if someone would like to work with me, to see how other communities do it. And over the years, I recommended that anyone who wants to be appointed or reappointed should fill out an application. And there was pushback on that. We've talked about term limits, and we've had pushback on that. All various things. And I think based on some of the vacancies that we have and just looking at our committees, it would be good to review and put in place something. So I guess part of me is also, Susan does a lot on this. And yes, she's staff and that's part of what she does. But and I'm not one to look at other communities. I say that, but I think there are some responsibilities that we have select board. I was noticing, I went through some bylaws and I saw that we should really be receiving agendas and meeting minutes, and we should be reviewing those from the committees that we appoint. And we haven't done that as a select board before. So I'd like us to discuss a little bit more about some of that. Are you pulling out the bylaws, Joe? I forget what section it's in, but,
all the appointments that we make to the different committees.
yeah, I mean, we have, the other thing I'd like us to talk about and review is having liaisons, at least to some of our bigger committees, so that, one, I think it would help all of us understand a little bit better of who we're appointing and what they're doing. But two, we are held accountable by our voters, right? If what we're doing is not appreciate it, or they don't think it's the right thing, we can be voted out of office. If what we're doing, they come to us and they complain, or they comment, or they tell us something, and I think some of our committees that we appoint might be getting that, but maybe not all of them. And we always talk about working with our committees and not working in silos, and I think there's been some silo happening over the last number of years. So, again, if someone is willing to do this with me, Makita, great. Then, you know, I don't know exactly when we'll come back to you with something, but hopefully early in the new year, so that we can review it and discuss it, so that we can let the committee members know early spring, so there's a good 6 months before we make reappointments, or, you know, 4 months before we start looking at that, and we have something new in place.
So that's great. I think if you guys can come up with some, you know, potential ways that we can do this, that would be amazing, because, you know, I agree with what Yolanda said. I think the issue has always been, it's like we don't think about it until June, and then by the time we start talking about it in June, it's too late to do anything for August, and to be able to, you know, we're always kind of, there's this balance to strike between this like institutional knowledge that a lot of our longtime volunteers have, but there's also the desire to get new people involved, and there's also people that, you know, we see it from time to time where we get talent bank forms, and Susan will send them to us, and there's no openings on a committee and people want to serve. So it's kind of trying to find that right balance. So, and also kind of, again, holding them a little bit more accountable than we have in the past, I think would be great.
Yeah, we've been a little slack on that.
So, well, there's only so much capacity.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot to do, and I mean, and I'm not saying that. I mean, there are great committees and great. I mean, all of our committees are great, right? They're all working on things. They're all moving things forward. I think this is for me. It's always been for the public to see what our committees and great work that they're doing, and how they can get involved in that. It's not. I mean, we have great committees. We have great volunteers. That's one of the things that makes Ashland such a great community, are the volunteers, and I mean, all the organizations that do great things in the town. For me, a couple things is, as Brandy said, trying to get some new blood, get new people involved, so that there is transition, right? There's succession, so that if for some reason you all of a sudden have you have a committee where you have a number of members who have been there for a while, and then all of a sudden they either need to step off or they decide to step off, and then you don't have some of that knowledge. There's been no one to transfer the knowledge to, right? It's like when you own a business, you have to think of your succession and how you're going to keep moving things forward.
That's why it's always nice to have associates.
Right.
So that way,
Right.
if somebody
Exactly.
decide to
Right.
come
A
down.
lot of
Right.
communities do that. Well,
Right.
that's something that
We've had that. We have associate members on some of our committees.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we need to encourage for all of our committees, right?
Perhaps.
Look at,
Yeah.
right, instead of increasing the size of a voting committee,
Exactly.
you have associate members who can attend and participate. And
There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like,
Go ahead, Michael.
to look at and explore.
Yeah, just to provide just an alternative perspective on the associates, just as somebody who's been in different communities and stuff. You know, I know what the intent is, but in some ways, and I just don't know how to delicately put this, but
just put it then.
yeah, you know, it almost seems like we would kind of be like in the business of giving out participation awards. So I think, you know, if you have multiple people applying for one seat, right, and you know, one person is chosen based on their skills and how they do in their interview, they have some ownership of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's a valid point.
and a sense of responsibility and a sense of, I don't know, it means something.
Okay.
Whereas if everybody, well, I don't really need to do much. I can just
Right,
kind
if
of mail it
if everyone
in. I'll at
gets-
least be an
okay.
associate.
Right.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
But some communities, but some communities have stipulations for associates. So like, you know, it's not like you're just, you know, holding up the side of the wall. Like as an associate, you are required to attend X number of meetings. As an associate, you are required. We could look at something like that too. I'm not saying that that's the right way to go. I'm just saying that we don't necessarily have to model it off of other communities where you've seen where that sort of thing hasn't been very successful. We should come up with our own schema and our
It was
own.
just a different perspective.
Yeah, but it's a good
Yeah,
one.
no, I think
It's a
that's
good
valid.
one.
It's good
It's
to
a
know.
good one.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd like to understand too, or at least to what committees and the types of responsibilities they have. And then in some instances, I think that we need to have a staff person involved with that committee on some kind of a regular basis. I'm not trying to put more on staff members, but I think sometimes to have somebody who is, professionally involved in the town, to be able to advise or to answer questions when people have them. I'd like to think about those types of committees that we have in town too that might benefit from some kind of input from town staff. So.
Yeah, we actually do a lot more than what we used to. Well, and when Emma was here, like, she was trying to support the Affordable Housing Trust, and I think yeah, as we look at kind of like staffing, moving forward and everything, that's something that we need to kind of factor if that's a kind of a direction you want to go in.
Okay.
And I think too, we might be able to do something where certain committees, like Yolanda was talking about, like a liaison, like maybe one of us kind of gets more involved with some of these
Right.
committees, and then we pull in staff if we need more support on a specific thing.
Yeah, there might be different levels
Yeah.
of,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but I just think in some instances it probably needs
And
the
I mean, some of
professional.
our regulatory staff, some of our regulatory committees that we appoint already have staff support, right? Board of Health has staff support, Planning Board, Conservation, so, sustainability, yeah, so, okay, good. We will try to get something for you by January, at least a start. Okay, discuss and vote on the obligation associated with Boston Marathon Invitational entries. So, and I think we were given some balances, some updated balances. So this is one of those things that we have 24 numbers. 10 we already have an agreement with an organization. And my thought was starting with an organization increasing the fee we ask them for their runners. And at some point, look at the fee, right? If we're starting to give out more money, right? We're giving potentially some organizations $6,000 a year. And we only have 24 numbers, right? So yes, that's a large amount of money, but if we want to be giving out more grants, then we may want to consider looking at raising the amount associated with the bibs. Now, if no one else thinks that's an idea, then we can stop the discussion right now. But I know what other organizations require their charity runners to pay and raise. It's as much as $10,000 for some of these charity, $7,500, $10,000 to be able to run the Boston Marathon. And again, right now, I'm just considering, should we do it for the organization that we give 10 to? And I believe right now the amount is $3,000 for them. We bump it to $4,000 and see how that goes. And then if it works and we want to increase the funds because we have more people applying for grants, then next year we look at all of our numbers and potentially raising the amount.
Could I suggest, because the economy has been kind of tough, instead of 1,000, raise it to 500, make it
So make it 3,500 instead of 3,000?
So I just want to
Instead
say
of
that we
4,000?
have a huge amount of money and not, we are able to fund every single grant to the maximum amount.
I'm aware. One of the reasons I'm talking about this is I think it's one of those things that at some point, if we don't, a couple things. One, if we don't think of increasing, right? We always have a waiting list. We always have a lot of people. If we look at increasing it, we might not have it. I don't know. I just think that at some point, people are going to be looking to our numbers because they're less expensive. And are we giving up an opportunity to potentially have more funds to give out grants? Because at some point,
if we keep it at $3,000, right? So 3,000 times 24, right? That will limit
$72,000.
$72,000.
And we
72,000
gave
divided
out-
by 6 is like 12, right? Now, we haven't given that many groups a complete $6,000. But if we look at, if we said, okay, we have organizations that are gonna come to us in both grant grounds and ask for $6,000,
So we gave out.
I guess I'm being preemptive.
We gave out $39,500 in this last round.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and we're raising 72, so.
Yep.
Obviously, I don't have the, April here, I do, I guess, have it here.
I think the balance in the account after we granted was about $67,000. So, and that's before the fundraising for this upcoming
Yep.
cycle. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, because I do know organizations, I know people that run for charities end up raising a lot of money because they have to, because bib numbers are so hard to come by. The thing of it is that I think one of the things that makes it so special for, and I know you're talking about for an organization, rather than the runners that run, like our community members that run. I kind of have an issue not making it equal across the board.
Okay.
And I also feel like 3,000 is a doable amount for someone to raise for Ashland. I think if we got to a point where we were draining that account, and we have our policy says that we're never going to grant more than 50% of what the balance is, and then we would prorate it. So
Right.
we would prorate everyone's grants. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, first of all, we don't need to make any changes right now because the
Right.
amount is so large. And the other part of the reason we made the changes to begin with was because we weren't granting enough
Yeah.
money, and that balance was growing
Yep.
so much more than what we were granting out. So my personal feeling is that if we get to a point where we're prorating things, then we can take a look at maybe changing that amount.
Okay.
That's my perspective.
The one other thing to consider, and I don't know if this would happen, right, but with the change of who sponsors the marathon, some organizations received fewer bib numbers. Will that happen to, if anything changed again, would that happen to us? We actually, I think, gained 1 or 2 numbers with the change.
Yeah, I think we
so
went from 22 to
24 or 25.
I think we were at 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Again, if no one else thinks it's something we should do, fine.
I don't think there's any rush to do that, right?
I also think that the organization that we give the bib numbers to, they use this as their main fundraiser for their charity. And so, I'm always struggling with, well, do we still give them 10, or do we reserve them more for our runners? Like, do we make changes that way? And that's kind of my thing, is like, I would almost rather like have them have fewer bibs and give more to our runners.
Yeah.
But that's, again, I don't think that there's any need to make any
Change for this year.
change.
Okay.
So the group that we give those bib numbers to, do they give us a percentage knowing that?
No, they
give
pay
us
us, they give us
They give us- oh, they give us
$3,000 for
$3,000.
each bib, and they get 10.
And they get
So
10.
we still
Gotcha.
get
Okay.
this.
We
the
get
proceeds,
the
if you wanna
the
call it that.
proceeds, yeah.
Okay, still.
And
okay.
whatever their runners run in and above the 3,000, they
That
use
They
goes to
get,
the
for their
charity.
yeah.
research.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay,
thank you.
That's my perspective.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
okay,
I'm happy with everything.
that's fine. I like to bring it up every
Yeah.
year, just because we gotta consider
good.
it, and you never know. Okay. Next, discuss and vote on funding for the employee recognition event scheduled for Friday, December 20th. Susan, do you have an idea for this?
I'm thinking 2,500.
Okay. For the food
does that
and
include?
gifts and,
Yes.
Yeah, can
that
you explain
includes
what
the
that
food and
covers?
the gifts.
can you
I'm sorry,
explain what
what?
it covers?
Lottery tickets.
I was gonna say,
Just joking. Just joking.
a stocking for Jen and Michael.
Don't you choke over there.
So at the recognition event, we hand out longevity awards. So it's used to purchase those, correct, Susan?
Yep.
And then the price of food for the event, and it's held at the community center. All employees are invited, and it's a way to to thank and recognize our staff.
That would be a nice event to hold someday, maybe at the Warren Barn.
Maybe. And the select board is invited as
might have
well
to do it in June.
to celebrate. So 2,500, Susan, you think we'll cover it? Okay, great. If I can get a motion to approve $2,500 for the funding of the employee recognition event.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. That passes.
Thank you, Susan.
And
Thank
just,
you,
and just also for clarification, that funding comes out of our select board gift account.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, not
so-
our,
Yeah.
select board gift
Yep.
account.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
No tax money.
Discuss and review the status of the open space and recreation plan progress. It's been a crazy week. I think we're at a point, I've let all of you know what decision has been made. I just checked in with Becca before the meeting. I think we're at a place, so the staff is gonna take on the project, but because of the timing, we have determined that we're not gonna push to get it done for the January 11th grant cycle, because of just timing and the survey and a lot of different things. And again, I think I explained that all. And then, we had a great meeting last night. They didn't know we were coming. I went to the meeting because I wanted to see what they were gonna be talking about the survey. Michael went as well. We had a great discussion, sort of clearing of the air, some
There were a few
back
bloody
and forth.
noses. You
It
can
wa-
be up there. No, it was a very healthy discussion,
It was,
actually.
it was very good. And with everything, it's been decided, so staff will take this on with the input of the Open Space and Rec Committee. I mean, Greg Wan was like, he was like almost excited. And part of what happened was miscommunication, misunderstanding, what other miswords can I use regarding this whole process? So I think we're in a good place, and we did press the urgency that we need a plan as soon as possible. That is still the goal, but between holidays and needing an updated, shorter survey, I think there's some work that needs to be done.
Okay.
So
So,
that's where we're at.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
Any
so.
questions?
So, we were planning to apply for this grant as part of the.
Downstairs.
Downstairs?
We
I'm
were-
sorry.
We were planning to apply for this grant to help fund the parcel that is on the warrant for town
UCC,
meeting, the
yeah.
UCC property. So, I don't know, do we want to talk about that?
Michael
or-
is still evaluating some other options that we should hold off on talking about until he has it a little more refined.
Could we put that on the agenda for the next meeting? Because now that we're talking about it, like, it's going to town meeting and we're gonna need to talk about it
Yes.
before town meeting?
Yes, so we can try to have it,
November 6th?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
So
it's,
next
I mean, I
meeting,
think
right?
it's a pretty,
Our next
it's pretty
meeting's next
straightforward. It's, so we've already applied for one grant that we hope we will find out the answer to in November. It was 600,000. So.
that we then have to match.
Yeah, but that was.
Right.
That was gonna be the same way with
Right,
really
either
any of
one,
them.
yeah, but I'm just saying.
So if, obviously if we're awarded that, then kind of everything's just kind of, well, I don't want
Gonna
to say
go.
everything is moot, but that takes care of grant funds. And
When will we know about that? I'm sorry.
I said, hopefully we will by November.
Oh, okay.
So,
And this is a matching fund?
It's a matching, yes, we have to
And
match
where-
the funds.
And where will that matching funding come from?
so ARPA funds, which
Okay.
we've already, so
this,
the
okay.
original, so basically the original funding stack included grant funds.
Yep.
So for a $1.4 million purchase price, either 600 or 700,000 in grant funds, depending on the grant that we were able to get. 250,000 from Sudbury Valley trustees, and the rest would be local contribution, which would be from ARPA.
Okay.
ARPA funds. So we've already applied for one grant that was 600,000. Okay, the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, which was the one that was due in January, we've decided we're not going to be able to make the deadline at that point, and so we won't be able to apply for that one. There is another one that would be opening up in, I believe it's March, but it is extremely complicated in the sense that it will require a partnership, and it will require it's just complicated. That's really kind of the best way I can put it right now. But it is something that we're having discussions with potential partners about joining forces in applying for this grant, and that one's like $1.2 million.
If anybody saw Becca's work, they would jump on, I think,
Yeah, right.
based on
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
not having to worry about it being complicated.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
mackerel.
so, well, the complicating thing is the relationships
No, I
and
understand
the getting people to yes. Yeah,
Okay.
So the grant that we are unable to apply for because of the time restraint,
mm-hmm.
at some point down the road, next year in 2025, can we apply for it and then put those monies towards?
No, we couldn't
can't
do it
do that.
retroactively.
Oh, we can?
No, we
Oh, we
couldn't
cannot.
do it.
Okay.
We can't.
retroactively.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if, hopefully we will at that point in time have
Maybe.
an open
Another-
space and
another-
recreation
okay.
plan.
And maybe other land that we'd want to purchase.
Purchase, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just, just kind of as an aside, just, one of the things we found out last night, I think, first of all, I think when we're communicating, especially with people on other committees, it's probably best just to include the whole committee when we're talking to them and making sure, don't reply all and all of that good stuff. And the other thing, if you hear something about somebody's motives or somebody's doing, just go to that person directly and have a conversation with that person. I think that would have probably.
That would have, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I said this last time, like, if you have an issue with me, I said this to everyone on the committee, and I say this to anybody, if you have an issue with me, come to me, right? If you have an issue with Joe, so.
Yeah, and the one thing I will take away is have somebody else read your stuff before you send
Yes.
it, because
I think we've heard that before for you, Michael.
oh my gosh, so well, it was like no, it had nothing to do with like tone or anything, but one of our open space and recreation members was really upset with something that I had sent, and I know like how I meant it when I wrote it, but he took it a completely different way. And when like I looked at it again, I was like, geez, yeah, I totally, there's no other way you could have read it. So, and that caused a lot of, at least with that one member, a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a lot of angst.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
was like, oh my
Any
gosh.
other questions or comments, or? Okay.
So just, I don't know if we'll talk about this again before town meeting, but so is the plan, like, I assume we'll kind of lay out the funding mechanism at town meeting and talk about this? and-
So we discussed that as part of the warrant, so we're,
Sorry.
so you just had missed that part.
Yeah, you missed the warrant,
So
yeah.
we're working on
Yeah.
the motion so that it would have a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, and we'll do just a couple of slides, and one of them will be dedicated to the funding piece.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good.
So.
Couple of reminders for those that are watching or watch us afterwards. Citizens Academy program will begin in January of 2025. It's a 10-week program that will meet on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month from 6 to 8. If you're interested, please complete an application on the town's website. In-person early voting is still happening, so Thursday, October 30th from 8 a.m. to 3:30 and Friday from 9 to noon. And then, of course, the regular full election is on Tuesday, November 5th. But I believe, Michael, we said we had 40% of our voters.
Yeah, as of yesterday.
40% of our
Yeah.
registered voters had already voted. Either in-person or mail-in ballots. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Approaching how many
Yeah.
overall vote in
Yeah.
even the
Yeah.
federal election, right?
She's sort of expecting 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
On
we're-
this
on this
Yeah.
one.
And
I
so
mean,
that's-
this is,
Yeah, we're usually in the higher 80s, I
Yep.
think, for
For presidential.
presidential.
yeah. Yep. Real estate taxes are due November 1st. Our next select board meeting is November 6th. A few more. Municipal buildings will be closed on Monday, November 11th in honor of Veterans Day. Special town meeting will take place on Tuesday, November 19th at the Ashland High School, starting at 7 p.m. Yard waste collection every Monday, with the last pickup being on Monday, November 25th. Your leaves do need to be in bags. Pre-Thanksgiving Farmers Market will take place on Saturday, November 23rd, outside at the regular location from 10 to 1. Textile clothing recycling, you have to schedule your pickup with Simple Recycling yourself at simplerecycling.com or an 800 number. Also, this Saturday, November 2nd, the Select Board is having meeting hours from 10 to noon at the library in conjunction with the library book sale. And we're determining if we're going to do it in December as well. Moving on to consent agenda. Motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And we're moving on to town manager's report. Priority project update, Michael.
Sure. So I'm going to start off with 126. So I think everybody's seen the crosswalks that they've put in. But also, Verizon is on site and moving the wires. So that is very good news. And so moving some things forward. But I tell you, even with some of the issues, people are walking on those sidewalks like constantly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and
They're loving
it's really nice to see kind of things coming to fruition. Doug and I are actually working on Doug Small.
Okay.
Just so we're going to be, as part of this, we're going to be responsible for the vegetation maintenance once it's handed over to us. So we're figuring out how that's going to work. We're also going to see if we are responsible for any of the upfront costs, which for vegetation, which it doesn't look like. You know, Sam and Becca actually got another grant to plant trees, more trees.
She said they applied
Yeah.
for it, so they.
Yeah, so we actually met the other day to kind of see if there are places where we already have to get trees that we could utilize for this. So
roundabout will be under our main.
eventually, yes, eventually, yep. So so good news on that front. Downtown also, so all the notices have gone out, so all the property owners are notified. So 102 Property Maintenance, that's the name of the contractor. They'll actually be starting next week doing the work. Shouldn't be really any impact to traffic. They're going to be able to keep things off-site for the most part. Actually, a really good contractor. They're really young, but they are very organized and very customer-centric. I mean, when they're doing the digging, they're going to be transporting stuff off-site, you know, the spoils, if you will, from the digging off-site, so it's not blocking anything, and at the end of the day, they'll go and get it again and then put it back.
Wow. That's great.
So far, everything's been going really, really well with them. So Upper Charles Trail, well, actually, I'll get to that. That's the next agenda item. Warren Barn, obviously, we've talked about that. So just a bit of a Valentine update. I know we've agreed to put it off, but I think I might have talked about this individually with some of you, but I don't think we've talked about it just in general. But I do think after we're able to get Town Hall, kind of the repairs done and the painting done, in the spring, we may look at seeing what we can do at the house just to kind of make some repairs that are going to be needed no matter what we decide the use is for it, right? So windows will need to be repaired, trim needs to be repaired, it might need to be a roof. Not like a full renovation project like the barn. So
A refresh.
What's the status with the town hall repairs? Where are we at now, percentage-wise? We're almost.
Yeah, so it's coming close, and we got the painting bids in. So.
Yeah, well, the painting bids will come in tomorrow, so they pressure washed one side, they've done some of the repairs, they have to do the rest. So there's still a little bit of work to do on the repair, and then we were hoping to have the bids come in tomorrow. Hopefully they're good for painting, and then we'll try to at least get it primed before.
For the cold weather really
snaps
in.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there's some
And-
additional work that has to be done that we found as part of the, work that we did in the attic.
Yeah.
And so we're scheduling that.
More than what
It
we
was,
anticipated?
Well, potentially, but right now we have some scheduled work, to have, and so that's gonna be happening in the next
Are we
few
painting
weeks.
the whole building? Okay, good.
Yeah. And
Okay.
the right color for those of you that are paying attention. So,
Okay.
so yeah, so those are moving forward. So update on the Upper Charles Trail and the Mass Trail Summit. So I'll start with the Trail Summit. So MAPC, MWRC, they had their regional trail summit at the Ashland Community Center. So Ashland hosted it. I think it was for the third time since they've been doing
Yep.
it. But it's always nice to host because you get so many people from from throughout the region, even beyond the region,
Yeah.
coming in and checking out. And so it was a good opportunity to update everybody on regional projects, but then there was a real focus on Ashland, including the Upper Charles Trail and what's happening and what we're moving forward on, and then also the YMCA. So they were able to talk about the stuff that they're doing. So it was really good. Yolanda was there, and I think Claudia, you were there for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it
that,
was
just,
nice.
just a little history. So the Metro West Regional Collaborative, one of our first trail summits was held here, and that was probably 10 years ago. And through their staff member, David Lutzenheimer, he does trail work. So every year, the Metro West Regional Collaborative, as part of MAPC, and it's been getting bigger and bigger and more involved and more discussion, and partly because there's been more funding at the state level and at the federal level for multi-use trails. So there's this project that MAPC is doing called the Landline that talks about how can we connect all these different trails and help the communities make those connections. So, like I said, one of the first summits was held here. We had people spread all over looking at maps and, okay, how can we connect this? And he's been updating, and it's very cool to see how these connections have been growing. Part of that is if you go to Natick and you go to the Home Depot and you see the trail that connects into Framingham, that will eventually, you get on that trail and you're going to be able to go all the way to Sudbury and Hudson and further. And then and I know I've mentioned this before, is the North-South Greenway that will start in Maine and end in Florida, and it's going to come through Framingham and touch part of the Upper Charles Trail. As well as at the same time, east to west, there's a 120-mile trail that will be going from Northampton all the way into Boston. So it's because of summits like this, and for Ashland to be part of that and to continue to be part of that is important for us and our trails, but also just for the community at large because of the benefits of having those trails available, but also potential for tourism and dollars coming in because people go on a bike ride and they stop for ice cream, or they go on a bike ride and they stop for lunch. And so that's really, it's not just the trail, it's the whole economic development potential for Ashland as well as the surrounding
You're
communities.
gonna have to be walking, because the traffic's gonna be brutal.
It was tonight.
Yeah,
So
but that's not on a multi-use trail, that's the sidewalk.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the Upper Charles Trail, really kind of our next step is to look at an RFP to do the engineering. But I'll just be very candid about it. I think things have to slow down a little bit for Jen to actually have an opportunity to put that together. So.
And that's understandable, I think, with the
Yeah.
two 40B projects coming in and some of these other things that have sort of been time sensitive. I mean, not that the trail isn't time sensitive, and again, you've all heard me say this. We've only been working on our trail for 8 or 9 years, and it took Holliston 20 years, and they had an empty trail bed. So,
Yeah.
good, because
Yeah.
it's true.
It is frustrating though to have
It's tough. It's
Yeah,
hard.
for
It's hard for
such-
the Trails Committee.
for such resource limitations because you want to do these things, but so there's that. And then just a couple of things. We had a reminder about yard waste collection. I will let you know if you haven't heard complaints yet about our yard waste collection. I'm kind of surprised because it really has not gone it didn't go well last year, but
Yeah.
it hasn't been going well this year at all. And
Let's hope it improves.
and so, I mean, we're finding, we are, doing.
Who's dropping the ball? Is it Waste Management?
Yeah, it's waste management. It's waste management. And I know everybody's like, get another company, but quite frankly,
Not that
talking
easy.
to other, I mean, there's a lot of administrative stuff associated with that. But quite frankly, talking to other communities, other haulers aren't doing great either. So, it's really, and it's because everybody's dealing with the same thing. They can't get the people to work.
Yeah.
So, so there's that. And just, Yolanda, a couple of things, Yolanda, that you talked about, tonight was just awesome. So Mina already gave us a count, so 750 kids
Through the library?
through the library, and so
Wow.
since we're all working together, library, the businesses, town hall, we just kind of assume we're all
That's
seeing
great.
rough. So it's about 250 more than last year. We
How
had-
did they do last Friday?
I'm sorry?
How did they do last Friday, the team?
Great.
It went
with the
well,
team,
went
yeah,
really well, yeah.
We were
Really.
across the way and we could see people, but it just count-wise, I couldn't tell how many people.
So when I went over, because I got like a little bit, I went in before the kids showed up, and I walk in and, it was funny because Miss Lois was like, "Are you volunteering?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not volunteering. I'm just here."
Oh, Lois came back to help?
Yeah, she
Oh,
was all
good for
dressed up.
her. She loves
Um,
that stuff.
And so I got a little sneak peek, and I said, "How many people?" And she's like, "We have like 40 to 50 kids registered, like registered."
Nice.
So I don't know how many ended up, but I ended up getting an email back from Laura, the teen librarian, and she said that it went just so well, and that the kids said it was better than they expected, and kids, which was.
That's cool.
I do think, I think they had a real good showing. My guess is the middle schoolers really kind of represented.
Yeah.
I think it's harder on the high school side. There was a football game that night and other things too, but
Yeah.
Kudos to the library for putting together such a really great event. So
Was it homecoming? No,
No.
it wasn't homecoming. Okay.
But tonight, I mean, it was great, and I was, I'm usually at the front of town hall greeting everybody as they come in, and you just look across the street, and like it's kids and families filling the street, and you know what? It's like on these nice sidewalks with the brick banding and the lights and everything, and it's like, doggone it, that's what we
That's what we
envisioned.
did it for, yeah. Yeah.
That's what we were thinking. It was like, I'll tell you, the phrase that came to mind, small town America. It just felt, it felt like it was going back to a time when you could kind of do that. And
Nice.
so, yeah, it's, like I said, today's one of those days when you really like your job. And
So it was funny, when I was leaving town hall, I was walking down Main Street, and I saw Michael Brogan, who was out there with a chair and a little table and a bowl of candy.
Oh, fun.
And he was like, "We live in the best town. Isn't this the best town?" He's like, "I saw this last year and thought next year I'm going to get out there and I'm going to give out candy." And he's like, "This is the best. We live in the best
awesome.
town."
It
So
really
just-
is.
I was.
That's so great.
It's
Yeah.
so even people who aren't like like a business, it's just everybody. It's just cool, and and like you
Great.
said, the staff, they get into
They were
it.
great.
It's a
They
remarkable.
had themes. There were the Three Little Pigs. There were the emotions from the
Inside Out.
Inside
Inside
Out. We had the Grinch. We had two Beanie Babies. I mean, like that. And they're creative. It was just so
Yeah.
cool. So cool to see.
And shout out to Sue's bat costume, which was
Yeah.
pretty awesome, actually. Very creative.
Who's bat?
Really
Susan.
appreciated
Susan.
that.
I got here. I must have
Yeah.
gotten here too late to see her costume.
So,
Handmade.
Handmade.
Umbrella.
Handmade, y'all.
yeah.
Nice.
Great work.
So
Umbrella and a lot of tape.
Pictures, please, Susan.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Well-
need to see it.
Speaking of employees and speaking of pictures, so we had our employee barbecue on Friday, which was another good time. I mean, we had trivia, We had
Kickball.
kickball. We had a
There was
kickball
some
game going.
on when you and I
We
were
had
chatting.
cornhole going, and so I think we've got some pretty remarkable pictures from
Yeah, we have
kickball.
Now, where
very
did you do that?
competitive
Kickball.
Where did you do that?
At
Community
the
center.
community center, there were
Okay,
fields
nice.
behind the community center.
Yeah.
I
great.
mean, we saw backflips. We saw
Just launching somebody over the fence.
Becca
themselves over the
launched
fence,
over
yeah.
the fence. Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
Chris did a belly flop.
Yeah, it was pretty
You
amazing.
know,
Yeah, we got
yeah.
pretty competitive. It was fun.
Interesting. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Camaraderie and building.
No water involved?
Wow.
Nope, it was just
Nope,
to not
just
get
dirt.
It was just not to get thrown out at third.
Wow.
You know,
Oh.
Gotta do what you gotta
Sounds
do.
extraordinarily painful.
And,
Just
and,
let the
and God
record
bless
show.
you, Kevin Pierce,
Yeah.
who from the police department, who showed up. And I'm like, you to join us? And he was like, do you really want me to go out on IOD for a kickball game? Kevin, good point. Good point.
Yep. Yep.
All right, thanks.
Great. Thank you for that, Michael. Board reports. Makita.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much to the staff here and everybody in the businesses for an incredible trick-or-treat townwide celebration today. I got out there a little bit myself, and it was fantastic, really, really beautiful. This is the time of year, I think, where we can feel proud and a lot of community pride. I've been to so many great events. Fall Fest at the corner spot. Beth and team, that was amazing. Just an incredible day. There was the Diwali Festival of Lights at the corner spot the next day on the 20th with the Ashland Indians in the town. It was great. I also had the privilege to be able to attend Ashland Indians Diwali event on the 26th. Incredible celebration of art, culture, and the holiday. Just incredible. So, like I said, this is prime time in Ashland this time of year. It's just fantastic to see the entire town pull together and rally around. And just another reminder, that pumpkin smash on Saturday, the 9th, is going to be pretty awesome. I do intend to attend that. So I hope we get some. Well, I think actually, Joe, it's the theme of sustainability that I'm really. And in all seriousness, though, that's important, and I think that we have to highlight that. But it's making it fun, and that's again, kudos. This is what it's all about, folks. This is what it's all about. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it is a busy time of year, right? And I guess all times of year these days are busy, but I just wanted to recognize Yolanda at the Haunt. I think some of us went there, and she performed the last couple of weekends. Did a great job. It was a lot of fun. That was a fundraiser for the YMCA and for Hopkins Community Center for the Arts. Yep. So that was really a lot of fun. I was able to attend the FinCom meeting last week when, our Michael and Jen, Brittany all sat with the FinCom, and it was helpful to me to just hear some things a second time, and just to hear them go through it and hear their thoughts on different things. So that was good. It was the WACA event, open house was going on simultaneously. I did run over afterwards. That was a very, very nice event and pretty well attended. So great, kudos to them, Paul, kudos to WACA, and really for what a big part of our community they are in terms of bringing community events to everyone, and just what a tremendous public service really WACA is for us. I sat in on the planning board again with the MBTA, and they had a huge, I did not come down, I did it virtually, this room was packed.
Yeah, I did
And there was
virtually, too.
another
Yeah.
30 people online, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, did that virtually as well.
Yeah,
So,
so, just really great questions, but I do think it'll be helpful to kind of at least give people just some basic facts so that they understand the distinction. They're both extremely important, but I think, and there are certainly some similarities, like I mentioned to Mark a little bit, what I felt were similarities. However, they're distinctive as well.
And Claudia, I unfortunately did not get to see that. I forget why, but Do you think there's a lot of people that have the confusion as to MBTA and 40B?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a,
there's a lot.
there's a lot.
And understandably so,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think, you know, it
They think it's gonna
it sounds
cure.
like the same thing.
It came
Right?
up at the meeting. I mean, people were
Yeah.
conflating it during the meeting, right,
Yeah,
Claudia? I
right.
mean, like, we heard that,
Yeah.
like, when it was
They're talking
happening.
about the mill building.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, even
Yeah.
tonight, like, we had, so, we
Yeah,
really,
so
I agree with you, Claudia. We
yeah.
have to
we
really
have to
kind
be a
of make
little
this distinct.
proactive
Yeah,
on that front, I think.
absolutely.
And then lastly, actually, it was Officer Dion came up to me at a field hockey game the other day and said, "Have you seen the movie American Woman?" And I said, I have not. And he said, well, he said he was watching it, and he recognized, well, how could you miss it? So that was in the summer of 2017. A film company came into town and asked
At the
permission to use the middle school
field.
and use
Yeah.
the middle school field.
Yeah.
And so, actually, I should send you, I did a little screen capture of just some of that section. And so, it's on Prime, it's on Amazon Prime, and it's the, middle school field. It says home of the Clockers. I mean,
yeah.
people are wearing A's.
Yeah.
There are kids, you might see people that you know.
We were sitting there for that.
Yeah.
We
and
went
so-
there for that filming.
So it was, so I did go back, I didn't watch the whole movie yet, but I will. But I did zoom through and look for, you know, the Ashland part. And then, indeed, there was another scene, and I said, oh my God, that's the Warren barn before it fell down in the background.
Really?
So, which I also noticed that this little logo that they have on, I've never seen that before. That's very nice. That Framingham State has, the Warren Center. And, yeah, cute. So anyway, so definitely I recommend everybody look at American Woman. There's several of them. Sienna, somebody is one of them. I'm not really good with actors and, huh?
Sienna Miller's expensive performance.
There we go.
Yeah.
American Woman, and yeah, it has, the language isn't great in it. If you have a
Younger.
it's nothing a middle schooler hasn't heard for sure, but
It is rated R.
it is rated.
Okay.
It is rated R. And,
Okay.
and it is, you know, like I said, I haven't watched the whole thing, but the clips that I did, there was a lot of language. I don't know what else was going on. It didn't look good. Yeah. From the perspective of being a family movie.
It's got 3
Well, if it's
stars
rated
on
R,
Roger
it's
Ebert.
probably not a family movie. So.
It does have 3 stars on RogerEbert.com.
Oh, there we
out
go.
of 4.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, he said it was pretty good. So anyway, so
Okay.
it was fun to see, you know, Ashland. And it was fun to see the barn before it fell down. I was like, wow, what year did the barn fall down?
We took, didn't we? No, we took
Well,
it down.
Well, yeah, but because it was
Yeah, it was
falling
in such
down.
bad shape,
It
we had
was
to take it down.
Proactive
Yep.
removal. Yeah.
Proactive demolition.
But I mean, it had to be after 2017,
I want to say it was 8.
soon. I know, well, that's what I thought. I thought, wow, I went on and then started looking at pictures of the barn just to make sure that was the Warren barn. And I was almost 100%, but then when I saw this picture tonight, I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's it for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Joe?
Thank you. I didn't realize Ashland was so popular on movies. That's pretty cool. Couple of things. Traffic Study Safety Committee meeting we had on the
You'll have to
22nd.
have a pumpkin smash, then it's really gonna be on the map.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. It's not like the night before Halloween when it was Cabbage Night. If anybody remembers what Cabbage Night
Yeah,
was in
it's a
Ashland.
great night. And
That's the
that-
night that everybody went out and smashed all their neighbors' pumpkins. That's why when you said,
Horrible.
I'm serious.
Cabbage night is a wonderful night.
Cabbage Night, I'm telling you that. So when you said smashing pumpkins, I'm going, wait a minute. After. After.
There was sustainability happening
Yeah,
before.
better than a mailbox, that's right.
It was
So,
sustainability happening before it's done.
that's right, we didn't know what they were doing. And you know, so I said they, not me. Anyway.
Anyway, what else?
All right, so, the Traffic Study Committee, we're still having some issues with the Water Street cut-through, and we're gonna continue having them until we do some resolution with how the traffic flow, goes over there. The residents are a little, up in arm about the speed of the vehicles that are going through. We've tried many different things, from signs to, painting different lines on the street to narrow the roadways, but it's still a major cut through to 130, to Myrtle Street heading up towards Badger Road and Route 9. So we may entertain putting up a no left turn at the end there to keep people from heading up Myrtle Street. And I know a lot of residents that live on Water Street are upset about that, so they may
Can't have it
ask us.
both ways.
You're right, you can't have it both ways, it's either one or the other. And the same thing with Green Street by Albert Ray Drive, we've did some extensive study up there, and we're looking maybe to widen the crosswalk up in that area to make it a little better and cut some of the brush that's on that private property. And that's the major concern. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, we would work on that. And then the last thing we had was a blind driveway on Myrtle Street where a resident almost got clipped big time. So that's been resolved and with a sign of, caution, blind driveway. Yep, so we're working on that. The 36th Annual Halloween Parade was last Thursday. It was a wonderful event. We had a lot of fun, 250 kids at the last count where we had.
Nice.
And the age ranges from 2 months to 10 years. So it was
Nice.
great. And we had a lot of parents that came out for their first time, and they're all dressed up. And so we had them go out and parade first.
There you
So
go.
it was a lot of fun, and they all got prizes, and they all got goodie bags, and they all got donut holes, and they all got juice. So thanks to everybody to make that a wonderful success, and thanks to the BAA monies to help provide that funding, because Ashland Day took a bath, literal bath, because of
'Cause of
the rain we had.
Yeah, it's too
We
bad.
had contractual obligations that we had to pay, and thinking that we were gonna get that money back, and unfortunately, because of that rain, we did not. But we pulled through, so we're greatly appreciated, everything that's been done for us. So with that, thank you very much. Happy birthday there, young lady.
Yes.
And that's it.
That's what I mean about cabbage night. It's a good night.
It's a good night. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Never mind.
Brandy?
So I don't have too much. I just wanted to, we were talking a little bit about the Citizens Academy. I did reach out to Mr. Wixer at the Ashland High School, who is the advisor for Student Council. And so, super nice guy. And so they had a STUCO meeting this morning, actually, and they brought it to the kids' attention. So, and it was like the link to the application. So maybe, hopefully, we'll have a couple really enthusiastic high schoolers that want to apply. I did say in my email to Josh that it's not community service credit, it's more like job shadowing, because I didn't want kids to think that they were getting, 20 hours of community service
By going through it.
by going through it. So, because
Good point.
they're all looking for community service. So, so just wanted to let you know. So hopefully, that would be great. I just wanted to congratulate Ashland Community Theater on Rocky Horror. I went last weekend with a couple friends, one of which had never really known about Rocky Horror, and learned about it in a whole new way. So yes, so it's and I haven't seen Rocky Horror since I was 20 years old, and it's a lot different when you're 20 years old. Let's just put it that way. But they did a great production.
They did
I
a
know.
great job.
They did
a great job.
They did a great job. So
Yeah.
congratulations to
Yeah.
them. And then just, today was so much fun in Town Hall. So thank you to the staff. Yeah, it was, it's so funny because I no longer have like the age of a child that comes trick-or-treating. So it's like I love that so much because I miss that.
Come on to my house tomorrow night. You don't even have
We get literally 5 trick-or-treaters. We get like
That's
nobody.
4 more than us.
We get like no trick-or-treaters, and some squirrel already like smashed my pumpkin. So it looks yeah. So, but anyway, just wanted to wish everyone a happy Halloween and be safe out there tomorrow night. And thanks. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be nice and warm.
Friday
Oh, okay. So a couple things. So yes, I was at the Haunt for the last 2 weekends. It was a great fundraiser. I think we had probably almost 1,000 people go through over both weekends, and it was a lot of fun. And again, for me, it's great because it's a fundraiser for both the Hopkinton Center for the Arts and the Metro West YMCA, and I'm on both their boards, so it's like I'm volunteering my time and knowing it's for a good cause. I was also at the WACA open house for a short bit before we had a comp plan meeting, so that was fun. I was able to give them a proclamation on our behalf. And then we had a comp plan meeting last week. We're working on gathering our technical experts for the 5 different core themes. I think, we're reaching, each individual comp plan member is reaching out to people to determine who is the best for certain things. And we were also supposed to, as of the 29th, get any feedback back to our consultants on their goals and strategies and things like that. I was also able to go see Rocky Horror, so that was a lot of fun. They did a nice job. It was interesting after the fact. I found out that one of the narrator actually is an Ashland High School graduate from 2012. Michael, I forget his last name, but yeah. Christiane was like, oh, I know him. Mike Lipschitz. No, I forget.
No, I know.
Yeah. Anyway, so the narrator was someone graduated from Ashland High School. Let's see. I have put my name in, and I've done an interview to potentially get appointed to the MSA board, the Mass Selectmen Association board. I will be, if I get appointed to that, I'll be stepping off the WEMO board. They recommend people do it for 2 years and then let someone else. So if anyone else is interested in participating with WEMO, it's a great way to meet other state elected women and participate in planning the virtual event and the in-person event. Nominations for that are still open until, I think, middle of November. And of course, the MMA conference is happening in January, Connect 351. It's at a new location. Consider, if you want to go, let Susan know. It's a great way to, again, meet people and just see what other communities are doing. It is being held at the Boston Convention Center this year. They've moved location. They have been at the Heinz for the last couple of years, and now they're at the Boston Convention Center. And I know Michael doesn't always think that there's valuable sessions from last year.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not good at change, so just changing the venues.
Oh. And then just a reminder, our next meeting is actually next Wednesday. We don't have the week off because of our change in schedule. As everyone else has said, Halloween is tomorrow. Happy Halloween. Be safe, have fun, and if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Happy Halloween. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you right back here next week.